do today? Yeah. All right.
Hello.
Hi, Clyde. How are you, brother?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for asking.
Yeah. So, evolution is false. What's your evidence for that?
What's the lack of evidence? So I believe in microevolution. I think microevolution is testable and observable. So I believe
Yeah,
in
it is.
micro. But
Yeah.
macroevolution, I think, is all inference. It doesn't have any evidence to support it.
Well, it has. It's one of the most. It's one of the most evidence-supported things in history.
Well, if I'm claiming it doesn't have any and you're claiming it has most, you might be able to blow my mind here. What do you got as far as evidence for macroevolution?
Yeah. So there's a few things. So we can observe that from single-celled organisms, they eventually like adapt and evolve from like that's even microevolution. You can see that
Well, I've already
beings like
conceded that
that can.
I don't want to interrupt you, but I literally just conceded that I believe in micro.
Well,
So
yeah,
there's
but
no, you don't have to bring me an example of
it's
micro. I've already believed in that. I need an example of macro.
okay. Shoot, I don't have too many things off the top of my head.
That's
Give
because
me,
there
give,
isn't any. That's my point. So macroevolution would have to be genetic information gain. I agree that adaptation, I believe in micro. So adaptation is absolutely real. You can take a wolf kind of animal and you can take the traits that already exist and you can selectively breed those traits down.
Bro, this
But
guy's sitting on live, just being a
but you can't
fucking
get.
idiot. What a
Thanks, man.
fucking
Appreciate you.
sad life.
Yeah, God bless. So
I can't.
that's
Yeah,
not
I
going to get you
actually
to a
don't
different
have any
point.
evidence on me for evolution, but I do have evidence for the world being the Earth being about 6.3 billion years old.
Well, they don't say that. They say the Earth is 4 point something billion, so you're about 2 billion years older than what they claim. So
What?
go
Hang on,
ahead.
give me a second. What?
I don't. I didn't hear what you said. So if you went off the
You're
app, I
right.
can't hear you. Okay,
You're
there
right.
you go.
I don't know why I. Hang on.
Okay, no, no problem. So you're talking about uranium decaying into lead? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, but you have to assume the parent material. So if so what happens is uranium absolutely decays into lead, and they assume that the decay rate remains constant. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's not something I would argue. Even if I grant that the decay rate remains constant, you still have to understand how much lead was in it when it was to begin with. For example, if you find a zircon crystal and it has 50% uranium and 50% lead, and the half life is 1 billion years, then you assume that it's 1 billion years old because half of the uranium has decayed into lead. But the problem is you're assuming that there was no lead to begin with. And if it is indeed 1 billion years old, how do you know that there was no lead in it to begin with? You're just making an assumption. Of course there is. That happens all the time. It's called leaching. The ground material brings it in.
In it
Yeah,
that is
absolutely.
only
It's
possible with
called common
uranium.
lead. Hold on one second. Hold on one second.
I don't have much time. I'm in a Russian base, but I just want to wish everyone a happy Thursday. Okay? All right. Have a good Thursday, everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you, man. Yeah, so there's what they call common lead. Okay, common lead is just lead that's literally in the atmosphere. That's common. Anytime you do a test, there's going to be background lead in it. So yeah, lead is a naturally occurring thing, and it's literally all over the place. So
Is there any evidence of lead is there any evidence of lead seeping into like rocks like
Yeah,
that
it's,
in that amount
yeah, it
for the
depends
half
on.
life?
Well, yeah, it depends on which one you're going to test, but yeah, absolutely. If there's, I think it was phosphorus. I looked this up yesterday, but if there's, I think it's phosphorus. If it's the 11th most abundant um, occurring element on Earth is phosphorus, and if there's any phosphorus around, then it actually helps carry lead into zircon crystals. So lead is very common, brother, very, very, very common. And so
Okay.
now you have to assume that there's no leaching in the crystal, which we know that it's not a closed system; it's an open system.
Okay. All right, yeah, I'll give you that. I haven't done too much evidence on, or I haven't done too much research on it, so I'll concede that point for now because I don't have enough knowledge on it to.
Yeah, man, look it up, brother.
See.
Look it up.
So, what's your evidence for the flood was real?
I'd say the evidence for the flood is hydrologic sorting, polystrata fossils, dinosaur boneyards, soft tissue, and DNA fragments being
Dinosaur
found.
boneyards. What's with that?
Yeah, so you got basically you got a dichotomy unless you want to bring a third option, but usually the two options is to explain these dinosaur graveyards. Like you've got the Morrison Formation and the Hells Creek Formation that start at the top of Mexico, go all the way across the United States and into parts of Canada. That's one dinosaur graveyard, right? So the evolutionary model says that these dinosaurs unalived in thousands or tens of thousands of individual flood events over millions of years. They still agree that it was
No.
a flood event because
It could have been.
No.
It could have been. Or it could have been extremely fast. Dude, why can't I think? It could have been extremely fast burial in magma and tar.
Okay, but that not in the formations that I mentioned. So it is possible that you have volcanoes forming fossils, but those are extremely rare. The vast, vast, vast majority of your fossil, which still fits the flood model too, by the way, but the vast majority of your fossils are formed from sediment burials. And I'm not aware of any that's in the Morrison or Hells Creek Formation, but there are fossils that if you're buried by volcanic sediment, it can fossilize that way. But
What
the
about tar?
vast majority of them is from the flood. So like in the formations that I mentioned, the Morrison and the Hells Creek Formation, the evolutionary model says that these dinosaurs unalived in individual flood events millions of years, and they had to be thousands of flood events because you need rapid sediment burial.
Yeah.
Or
that's
is
true,
it
we
more
did.
likely that they unalived in a flood, one flood, they got sorted out by the flood, which we see in the largest trash heap today in the Atlantic. This is what floods do. And then they got laid down in one huge floating debris mat, and then as the waters receded, it washed sediment over them. I think the flood model is clearly the Occam's razor choice here.
Yeah, but I agree that Christianity does give a very basic like answer for how burial works in that, but even in that, it would have to say that dinosaurs existed before the flood.
Of course they did.
You agree that it happened before the flood? That dinosaurs existed?
Yeah, he made them on day 6 with man. I think the dinosaurs unalived about 4,500 years ago in a flood. And not only do I just think that, I have scientific support for that, like soft tissue and
Wait.
DNA found in dinosaur bones.
Could I stop you right there real fast? You said the dinosaurs died from the flood, correct?
Hmm.
Okay, we have evidence that they died from mainly smoke, debris, and asteroids.
Okay, I believe that an asteroid hit the planet, and that's what caused the fountains of the deep to break open. And I believe the asteroid is what caused the fountains of the deep to break open, which is the flood. So I don't dispute that there was an asteroid that hit the Earth. I actually think it was a comet with an ice tail, but same difference.
So wait, so you're saying that there was a God sent a meteor to hit the Earth
Mhm.
so that the flood basically floodgates would open and the flood would happen. Why didn't he just make the flood happen instead of have
Well,
an
because
asteroid?
what we see outside of like miracles and things like this is God works within his creation, right? Just like when he passed judgment on different people groups in the Bible, he used the Israelites to pass that judgment. God usually worked. Now he he can absolutely snap his fingers and cause something to happen. But if we're looking at the events of the Bible, most of the time God acts within the creation. So if he's going to cause a flood to happen, he could just snap his fingers and cause the water to appear. But that's not what the Bible describes. The Bible literally describes the fountains of the deep breaking open and the water coming from underneath the crust of the earth. So
Okay.
God, again, he could snap his fingers and make that happen. But I believe, given the circumstances that we have with the Bible, I believe that God caused an asteroid or a meteor. I think it was a meteor, hit not a meteor, a comet. Excuse me, a comet hit the planet. This what caused the crust to break open. I couldn't prove this, but I think the evidence supports it.
Yeah, you couldn't prove this. This is all just speculation.
Well, it's not speculation. There's a difference, right? The reason why I don't use the word prove is because I couldn't prove you and I are having this conversation, right? Oh my goodness, got a lot of background noise. I couldn't prove you and I are having this conversation. You might actually be plugged into the matrix, and it's just actually sending your signals to your brain,
Sure.
making you think we're having this. So
Yeah,
I
there's
don't use-
definitions of
hold
proof.
on,
and I
hold
would
on,
say-
hold on. Let me land it, man. Let me land it. So when I say I don't prove it, that's what I mean by that. But I'm not going off of no evidence. I'm literally giving you evidence. So it's true to say that I'm not proving it, but the evidence lines up with my viewpoint way more than it does yours.
All right, could I give you my viewpoint?
Well, hold on one second. Let him respond to that, and then absolutely.
Oh no, he left.
Oh, he did. I didn't even see it. I guess he didn't want to continue.
Yeah, I
go
don't see
ahead.
him there.
Yeah,
He
go ahead.
left.
Go ahead.
The fossils when the dinosaurs got extinct, they are like neatly. They're pretty neat, correct? They're not all spread out and such.
No, what do you mean? It literally goes
They're
going
like
across
the fossils are in an orderly fashion, is what I'm trying to like point out. Because when we found the fossils, they weren't like spread out like unevenly. They were pretty like they had like sections, and those sections were like neatly resorted. Like the fossils that were sorted were neatly into a collagenic layers.
Okay,
And if there was a flood, it would have been like sorted a lot differently.
What do you mean? I don't know what you mean by that.
So the thing about it is, if the flood actually did happen, the organisms and the fossils would have been like, they would have been mixed, like all around. Like, as in, they would just be sorted out weirdly.
No, that's not true. So what you see, like we can use this as an example. Are you familiar with the largest trash heap in the Atlantic right now?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, it's like the size of several states, if I'm not mistaken. And nobody went to this place to throw out their trash. The water literally sorts this out, right? So you have different currents and flows and stuff like this, and it sorts it out. And so it's not just a random bunch of nonsense all put together, because somebody might drop their trash off up here or over here, but it all comes together in this one area that stays out in the ocean. So that's what we would expect to see in floods. It literally puts things together, right? It sorts them out. Currents and everything does this. It causes it to push together. So that's what we would expect to see is these things would get sorted out, and then they would get laid down in these huge debris fields. This is what the dinosaur boneyard is. It's one large dinosaur graveyard. Now, it's not impossible, but it is extremely rare. Why are most of these dinosaurs that are like in the Morrison and Hales Creek Formation, why are they not found with their children? You mean this flood happened and none of them were found with their children? Dinosaurs were egg layers, meaning that they nurtured the egg. They stayed on top of the egg in an effort for it to hatch. Now, there are examples of some reptiles that hatch their eggs and then automatically leave the dinosaurs, but we also see in other formations where the dinosaurs refused to leave their eggs as the water was rising, and they literally unalived and drowned on top of their eggs trying to protect them. This shows us that some dinosaurs were nurturers, meaning that they wouldn't just abandon their children. So if they unalived in a flood, then we would expect their children to be unalived in their flood. So why is it in these formations we see these dinosaurs that are roughly the same body density type? Like the Morrison and Hales Creek Formation, you got the Triceratops, duck-billed dinosaur, the Edmontosaurus-like, and then you got Tyrannosaurus Rex. So why don't any of these adolescents? Now, I'm not saying it's impossible, because there is a couple of examples, but the vast majority of them don't have any adolescent dinosaurs with them. this is why it's so hard to decipher. Like, for example, the Dracorex and the Pachycephalosaurus. A lot of people believe that the Pachycephalosaurus is the adult version of the Dracorex, and the Dracorex is just an adolescent Pachycephalosaurus. But they don't know this for sure because they're not found together. That's my point. So yes, they would. The flood model is exactly what we would see how these dinosaurs are buried and fossilized.
With the Noah's Ark or like with the dinosaurs?
Well, yeah, I mean, while the dinosaurs were drowning, Noah was in the ark. Yeah,
Oh, it was? Oh, I didn't know that part.
it's a flood.
So here's the thing. How were koalas in Australia, both alive and fossil records with no physical evidence of them traveling across the ocean or uh, in the Middle East or anywhere? They would
Well,
have
because
died out.
oh, so you're asking me? Let me steel man your position because the question was a little vague. Are you asking why there's no fossils of koalas from Mount Ararat to Australia?
Yeah, because they can't swim at all. And for what we know of, they were in Australia, not in the Middle East. So if the flood would have happened, fossils would have showed up and they would have died out.
Sure, I'll answer that. So you wouldn't expect any fossils because that's not how things fossilize. You literally need a flood, or we mentioned a volcano, which is rare, but you need a flood for the most part for fossils to happen. You need rapid sediment burial. If a koala bear unalived on the way to Australia, then it wouldn't fossilize. Even if you buried it, it still wouldn't fossilize. You need very specific circumstance like rapid sediment burial and pressure. Because even if you bury it in sediment, it's still not going to fossilize. You need enough pressure to force the mineralization to happen quicker because the microorganisms are just going to eat the animal until it completely dissolves away into nothing. And if I'm a deer hunter, so if I unalive a deer and bury the remains, it's not going to fossilize. So fossilization is a rare event, and we wouldn't expect any koala bears or any animal that unalived on its way to Australia to fossilize because that's just not how it works. And
Right, but what the evidence?
you had two questions. So let me answer the second part.
All right.
If I told you that the koala bears, in an effort to get to Australia, got on a floating debris mat and sailed to Australia, would you think that's kind of ridiculous?
Yeah, I'd say that's
That's
pretty.
that's what you guys believe about the monkeys in the New World, and I'm not making that up. Look it up. You guys believe that monkeys got on a floating debris mat and literally sailed across the Atlantic, not once, but actual several times. That's a real theory from the theory of evolution, because you can't explain how the monkeys got to the New World. So they say that monkeys got on a raft and floated across. So
We're talking about
that's an
the
actual
great
theory.
apes.
Mhm. That's why they can't explain the New World monkeys. So they say that they're called rafting monkeys. Look it up. So I think when we say, not you personally, but when evolutionists say it's kind of silly, how could koala bears get to Australia? Well, if you just zoom out on a map of Australia, you clearly see land bridges that once existed all the way to Australia. You have key islands right there. So naturally, after the koala bears got to Australia, then as the waters receded, those island or that land bridge was washed away. That's how they got there to begin with, right? But if my contention would be that the koala bears got on a floating raft and then floated to Australia, you would think that was silly. But that's exactly what you believe about the monkeys, and you believe it happened across an ocean, which is even more ridiculous, right?
I don't believe that. I do believe we came from the great apes, but not raft monkeys. Also,
I'm just saying that's
koalas
what this
originated
is.
from Australia, so they didn't travel at all.
Well, that's your contention, but I don't see any evidence for that. Just because they're there now
Um,
doesn't mean that they came from there.
well, no, we have evidence just by sorting it out. We have evidence of koalas originated in Australia.
That's because you don't find them anywhere else. But that does, and again, we've already talked about how things fossilize. So just because you find them in this one spot today doesn't mean that that's where they've been forever. But it still wouldn't matter. The flood, I mean, I could still prove that the flood happened, whether you want to say koala bears originated there or not. It wouldn't hurt the flood model.
Hey, but creation.
What's up, man?
Hey, do you remember what animal lays down with the lamb in the Bible?
I think it's a wolf, isn't it?
Well, it used to say the lion,
Yeah, I don't
but
think
the
it used to
Bible
say
is
that. I
being
think most
super.
people just think that. I don't. No disrespect, man. That we're kind of going off topic, but I don't do that whole. The Bible's been changed. It's just that's a weird argument. I
Well,
understand
do
where
you
you're
know
at.
there are now two different Ten Commandments in the Bible?
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I literally just told you I don't do that kind of argument. It's just weird, right? To say that the Bible's been changed by some kind of magical event, and it's the what you call it effect. I just don't do that. All right,
So
go ahead.
I know you're stupid and everything, but the Bible has been supernaturally.
Okay, it's been supernaturally changed. Yep, I'm stupid. Thank you.
I don't remember the Bible being supernaturally changed.
It hasn't. It's called the Mandela effect. Just because people used to say that the lion would lay down with the lamb, we can actually look at was it 2nd century, 3rd century paintings where they have the wolf laying down with the lamb. So the scripture hasn't been supernaturally changed in the Mandela effect. It's just that people said that for so long that that's the way people interpreted it. And then when they actually read it, they go, "Oh, the Bible was supernaturally changed." It's a really weird alien argument, man.
Oh. Well, I have evidence for the koalas and how they originated from Australia.
Hit me with it.
So the fossils that were discovered and in the mapping global data, we found out that they originated from.
You went off the app. I can't hear you.
Oh,
You might have got a phone call. Okay, so if the koala bears originated in Australia, how does that disprove the flood?
So the flood happened all around the world, correct?
Yep.
All right. So Noah's Ark was in the Middle East.
Yep.
Which isn't near Australia, for what I know of.
Wait, hold on. You talking about before the flood?
What do you mean before the flood?
Where was the ark when it lifted off the ground? I know where it landed.
I don't remember.
We're not talking about where it landed.
Particular.
We're talking about where. Okay, that's because the Bible doesn't say.
Where it landed.
Yeah, so we know where it landed. We know where they got off the ark, but we don't know where the ark was at before the flood. That world was destroyed by water, so we don't know where they got on the ark yet.
What animals did they save, if you don't mind me asking?
All of the land animals that had the breath of life in their nostrils.
Even if they were far away and couldn't reach the ark?
Yeah, but you're saying, like, again, I don't want to sound disrespectful, but I literally just answered that because we don't know where the ark was at. So how are you saying the animals are far away if you don't know where the animal's at or where the ark was at?
Right, you said every breathing animal. If it's every breathing animal, that includes the whole earth. So are there some animals that died out?
But you're doing uniformitarianism. You're imagining that the way things are today. So you're thinking about Australia being Australia and the world looking exactly the same, the water going over it and then running off and then the world still looking the same. That pre-flood world is totally destroyed. God said that he made the planet to be inhabited. Only 3% of it now is inhabitable. The rest of it is deserts, uninhabitable mountain ranges, and then vast oceans. The rest, only like 3% of it's habitable. So that pre-flood world is gone. It's destroyed. God destroyed it with water. So it probably, I don't know what it looked like, but I would imagine that it clearly doesn't look like what it looks like today. So your contention that the animals couldn't get there because it was too far away implies that, one, you know what the pre-flood world looked like, and two, you know where the boat was at, and three, you know where the animals were at. But you just don't because it's a pre-flood world. Now, you are free to say, I don't believe it, and that's fair. You can say you don't believe it, but you can't say the Bible doesn't teach it.
Right.
But listen, man, I've had a good conversation with you. You've been calm, cool, and collective, man. So the reason why I do this is, one, because I want to strengthen the faith of the Christians and show them that what the Bible says is literally true and scientifically accurate. And then two, if they're not saved, I want to get them saved. So my last question to you before I move on, brothers, what do you know about Christ?
Jesus Christ, right. So religiously, in the Christianity point of view, he was the Son of God, the physical being of God that went on earth to help and spread the gospel, talk about God, the past, and whatnot, using miracles to help a blind man see again, or to whatever. This was in where the religion of Judaism used to live. I forgot where it was, but then he went to, that's when he started to make Christianity when he got older, then went to the Romans, then they killed him for treason by putting him on the cross. And then an earthquake happened,
So what
he fell
do you
down.
know him personally?
Huh?
Do you know Jesus Christ personally?
No. But this is what happened historically. That's how he got in the tomb in the first place.
Okay, so I was you. It sounds like you know Jesus, like you know about him, you know of him, but do you believe in him? Do you know that he was the Son of God? Not only like we believe he's the Son of God, but do you know that he's God incarnate? And do you believe that?
I do not believe that Jesus is any type of God, but I think he was just a good man, who tried to help as much as possible.
So where
That's
are you
just what
getting
I
that
think.
No problem, no problem. Where are you getting that information that Jesus was a good man and tried to help out? Where are you getting that?
Right. So, the reason why I just think that is because we can go back to other religions and other scriptors who saw Jesus, which all of them had their different points of views. Like the Islam, he was a messenger that helped. Judaism,
Yeah, but where
I
are they
don't
getting that
remember.
information at? I'm walking you
Seeing
somewhere. I want to show you
Jesus.
this. Right. So Islam believes in Jesus because of what the Christians say. So they're getting their sources from the Bible. So ultimately, your source of Jesus comes from the Bible. That's where it's documented at. So you believing that Jesus was a real man and that he walked on the earth literally comes from the Bible. Well, if you're believing the source that he is a good man and that he did these things, my question would be, why do you believe the parts that say he was a good man and did good things, but why do you not choose to believe the parts where it says he is God incarnate? It just doesn't make any sense to me, because that's literally where you get the historical context from. There's only one other mention that there's people like mention it in letters and stuff, but there's only one other place, which is Josephus. But again, he's talking about the Jesus of the Bible. So you have to go to the Bible to learn about Jesus.
Right.
Yeah, man. So listen, I'm not gonna like shove it down you or anything, but if and we don't have to do it on a public setting. If you'd like to send me a private message or whatever, I'd love to share Christ more with you and show you the field of textual criticism and how we can put our trust in the Bible and what it says about Christ is actually true, because the information that you're getting is from the Bible, and it's just people picking and choosing it, because the textual criticism is undeniable. Even in mainstream scholarship, they have to understand that these events are true. They happened. They just try to reject the resurrection. There's never been one archaeological discovery that disproves the Gospels. However, there's been numerous archaeological discoveries that actually support the Gospels, that show that what the Bible describes actually happened. Not one archaeological discovery has ever disproven anything that the New Testament says. And in fact, it's been the exact opposite. What we see when these individuals make these claims, there's the pool of Bethesda, maybe, or there's different names of pools. And I'm actually doing a video on it now. It'll be out later, but I think it's in the book of John. He mentions this pool, and these angels used to go down in the Old Testament in the water and stir up the water, and then people would go there to be healed from the water. And people's like, this is a very strange story. Clearly, this is made up. It never happened up until the early 19th century, until they found the pool of Bethesda. It's an archaeological discovery. You can go there to this day and take a look at it. Now, obviously, it's not. We're in the new covenant now, so you don't have angels coming down and stirring up the water, but they found the pool. So that just coincides with what the Bible says. Pontius Pilate, they found a headstone talking about him that dates to the same time of the first century. They found numerous archaeological evidences that actually coincide with the Bible. So I'd encourage you to look it up, man, and give me a follow. And if you have any additional questions, man, then hit me up, and I'd love to share Christ with you. All right?
Yeah. And then one more question. Do you mean evolution as in like human evolution, or like evolution entirely?
I'm talking about macroevolution. So I believe in micro. I think micro is
Okay.
testable and observable. So we can test and observe that. Thank you for the stickers, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. I had a great conversation
man.
with you.
Thank you, man. You too. God bless, brother.
Hello.
All right. John, what's up, dude? You're next.
Hello.
Hey, man, what's going on?
Not too much.
John, you got something on topic you want to bring up, brother?
Now better. I don't know if I'm being heard.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. I want to talk about evolution. I don't know what you mean about evolution is false.
I believe in microevolution. I think that's testable and observable. But anything outside of micro would be like macro or chemical or cosmic. I don't think there's any evidence to support those types of evolution.
So Kent Hovind.
Yes.
I like Ken Hovind. Yeah, it's cool.
So how can you debunk it, though?
Well, I'm taking the negative on it, but it's the lack of evidence, right? So I don't think there's any evidence to support macroevolution. And because of the lack of evidence is the reason I say that it's not true.
Okay, so you believe in biblical that the Earth is about 600 or 700 years old?
I believe that it's less than 10,000 years old. Honest answer is I don't know how old it is. That's my honest answer. But if you're just asking me what I believe, I would say that it's less than 10,000.
Okay, because microevolution goes back more 100 years of just little less than 10, but okay. This is what
I believe in
science
micro
says.
there, brother. I believe in micro. Yeah, I believe in that.
What
That's
is the
testable and
difference?
observable. Microevolution is small changes within the same kind, but no new information. Like you can take a trait, isolate the trait, encourage it or discourage it. Like for example,
Every
you can
type of
take.
change is new information.
That's not true.
He has a point. He has a
How?
point.
What do you mean it has a point? If I lose my arms, I don't have a new type of information. I've lost information.
It's still not the same numbers.
Brother, you could. I don't want to sound disrespectful, but you cannot possibly use losing information as evidence for evolution. You can't go
How?
from a single-celled organism to a fully functional human by losing everything. It just can't happen. It's a math problem.
So do you think mutations are only losing information? Because that's not true. Mutations
No,
can
I don't.
introduce new
Mutations
information.
are taking existing information and scrambling it up. That's not new information.
That's-
That's existing information. Duplications. I believe in mutations. I believe in duplications. That's existing information.
So evolving to not get a certain type of sickness, let's say cancer, that wouldn't be evolving something.
Well, you got to give me more specific than putting out a big statement like that. I have to know what the specifics are in an effort for me to say it's evolution or not.
So you
I
think
don't know
that
what the
the species?
straight definition would
If
be
I
there.
lose my feet, like both of my legs are I lost them in a car accident, let's say, God forbid, but then I would be immune to athlete's foot. Yes, in the very, very, very select circumstance of me being immune to athlete's foot, I have had a gain there, if you will, but it's not a gain of information. I've had something beneficial that's happened only in that very select scenario. So
But that has
clearly that's
nothing
not
to do
a
with
gain of
evolution.
information. What?
That has nothing to do with evolution.
Okay, then give me an example of genetic information gain, please. Then give me an example of the evolution since you have so many. Just give me one.
Okay, let's take the whale.
By the way,
it slowly got up on land and
You
had
said the whale.
a certain form
So
of legs.
the first thing
When
out
it
of
got
my, I don't
back
think you
into
understood.
water,
I
it
literally
lost
just,
its
I
legs.
ask you for evidence of gain, and the first words out of your mouth is the whale is losing its legs. I don't know if you know what happened, but that's what just happened, brother. I ask you for evidence of gain, and you literally said the whale is losing its legs. Are you okay?
I might have misheard you there.
Okay,
I-
I need examples of gain, not loss. And secondly, let me just go ahead and help you out with this. The individuals who told you about the whale's anatomy as far as those two bones sticking down are now legs and they're vestigial. There's only two options when it comes to this. Either they are ignorant about whale anatomy, and that's not me insulting. Sometimes you can just be ignorant of something. It just means you have a lack of knowledge, or they are lying to you in an effort to get you to believe something that's not true. Those two bones that hang down are anchor points for the whale's reproductive organs. They're not vestigial, and they didn't used to be legs. They have a function. They've always had a function. It's for the whale to make baby whales. It has nothing to do with used to be legs. So even if I was to grant you, though, even for the sake of argument, if I was to say, okay, the whale's losing its legs, that's still not evidence of evolution because you're showing me degradation. So it doesn't matter which way you go. It's not a good argument. So I need some example of some
you would be more
gain here.
akin to something like, say, the first multicellular cell, because that's more than one cell.
Yeah, do you have an example of this? What do you got?
I don't have a concrete example of that.
Okay, well then I can't contend with it if we don't have an example of it. Just stating that it happened doesn't help me out as far as contending with an argument.
I mean, we have multicellular cells. That's kind of evidence that it happened at some point. How is a debate?
Come on, man, that's begging the question, dude. You're saying that because we have this, therefore it happened. That's not that's how it happened is in contention. I believe that God created these things fully formed, and it says they'll produce after their kind, and that's what we see. That's testable and observable. However, what you believe is without any scientific proof. You just say, I believe that this happened long ago and far away.
What evidence do you have that they were fully formed?
That's everything that we see. We don't see anything not fully formed. When I look at the Cambrian explosion, all of these things have have arms, legs, eyes. All of these things are just literally pop out of nowhere, and they're fully formed.
The Cambrian explosion.
The Cambrian explosion, yeah.
That's also a couple million years into evolution, yes.
Oh, I understand you believe that, but that we don't see that. You have to show me how these things evolved, right? There's no intermediates in between, like half crustaceans.
Yes, there are.
There's no multicellular organisms going into crustaceans.
There's tons of examples of intermediate organisms with humans and
give me an example.
Literally every other animal. Use Google. I mean, you're clearly looking up specific. Well, wait. First of all, I want to introduce myself. My name is Charles. I'm not. Do you just want me to call you Creation or?
That's fine.
Okay,
that's fine.
So I also want to commend you real fast for taking on multiple people, because it's a lot easier to get bullied, because if we all have one stance, we could dogpile on you, which is not an easy position to deal with. Like, it's going to make you frustrated and stuff. But anyway, as far as intermediate species, you're looking
greater is he that is in me than this world. It's not hard at all. I've taken on a lot more, but I appreciate the compliment.
Yeah. So you're, obviously you study Kent Hovind, you study creationist science, and you're looking up specific arguments for certain, to counter evolution. I would urge you to look up specific arguments that counter creationism. Like, what is that one school that Kent Hovind went to, the Creationist Institute or whatever? There's plenty of intermediate examples. Or wherever Hovind got his, fake doctorate or whatever. But look up intermediate examples. There's plenty. There's also plenty of YouTubers.
And what they do is they use the fossil record. Okay.
Yes.
So what? Okay. Well, what you do with that is you literally just line up shapes and put assumptions on them. That's not how science works. You don't say that this looks like that, so therefore it had to come from that. And you literally just line these things up and then that's not how that works.
I think phylogeny
you can't prove any of those bones had children. I promise you it's not. I promise you it's not. That's literally what they do. They literally look at these things and say, okay, look, this one has a bone that looks like the radius. The whale has a bone that looks like the radius. It must have come from this animal. That's shapes and assumptions, man. That's not science.
It is a one-to-one example. So you can look at a bat's wing or a whale's fin or a human hand. They're all examples of mammals. I don't think that's simply, saying like, oh, we're putting a square peg in a round hole. Like, no, it is a one-to-one correlation. That's why they are mammals.
Let's see how correlation is. Let's see if you accept this as science, because clearly this is identically the same thing. I was in my backyard, right? And I dug a hole. And obviously I found a bunch of layers, right? And I looked at the bottom layer. So since it's the bottom layer, it clearly had to be older. And I found this spoon.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, well, that's just a one-off. It's just a spoon, no big deal. But then I went a layer above that and I found this spork. Now you can see that these animals are clearly the same kind of animal, right? They're the same species. And you can clearly see that this used to be a spoon because it's still got these rounded edges, but now it's starting to get these grooves.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, look, guys, I've clearly found proof of evolution. But two of them together doesn't mean anything. So I found a spork in the layer above. Now you can see that it's getting skinnier and the lines are actually going down farther, but clearly they're still the same kind of animal. This is clearly the missing link in between this one and this one. And just when I thought my search was done, I found the fork. And it has an extra prong, deep cuts inside of it, and clearly the still same kind of animal. So these clearly have to be intermediate. These are the missing links in between the spoon and the fork. Now, you know just as well as I do that this is absolutely outrageously silly because all of these things were designed for a purpose. This is a spoon, a spork, a salad fork, and a fork. They did not evolve from each other. They were designed. But if I line them up by the way that they look, and then I put my assumption on it, then clearly this is how you would say these are the missing links because I've literally just added my assumptions on these shapes. That's literally no different than what you guys do with the fossil record. And you're validating that and say, yeah, that's great. That's good science. That's how you're supposed to do things.
Oh, of course, it's, we're not talking about man-made utensils. We're talking about biological processes.
It's analogous. It's analogous.
I think it's a really good example, and I think it would be very captivating for like a lot of people. And it's unfortunate. I think it's just a lack of education. Maybe I'm
come on, man.
One, but
how can you say that it is analogous? It's a good example, but you're just not educated.
Well, the reason I say that is because the utensils are man-made utensils. Biology is much more than just comparing the shapes of things.
You're just begging the question. You're just presupposing that we're not created in that image, so therefore it had to be evolution. That's just begging the question. So I actually need some evidence that's testable and observable, that's not inferred, and I'm just showing you how the fossil record is all inference. You're just literally lining these things up by their shapes and adding your assumptions to it. That's not how we do science.
Well, it's
so
not.
If you have an example, I'm open for it.
So it's not simply comparing shapes. Of course, there's a much larger body of evidence. I think the most concrete evidence is, of course, genetics. If we look at how genetics relate, humans share most of the genome with apes. We are apes with monkeys specifically. I think,
Yes.
yeah. So
we are apes with monkeys.
Yes, yeah, we are apes, and then we are related to monkeys. We're cousins of modern New World monkeys.
All right, so
yeah,
you got
and so you're going to
types of
say that
DNA.
a similar designer made like the fork and the spork, just like a similar designer made the monkey and the man. And that just kind of takes an extra leap of logic. I mean, why would you add something supernatural in there?
Let me instead of you making the argument, let me make it. Because you got two different types of DNA. You got nuclear DNA and you got like mitochondrial DNA. One of them is similarity DNA and the other one is direct lineage DNA. So why is it in our direct lineage DNA it goes back to a human? Bonobos go back to a bonobo. Chimps go back to chimps. Okay, but why is it that our mitochondrial DNA goes back to mitochondrial Eve, which is a female? Why is it that bonobos go back to a bonobo? Why is it that chimps go back to a chimp? If we truly are related, then our mitochondrial DNA should go back to an ape. It doesn't.
It does.
So why is it that you have to use... Oh,
yeah,
please.
We evolved from
where
old
is this
world
at?
monkeys. So
okay, that's a great statement. Where can I go to see that mitochondrial DNA goes back to apes?
Just Google it. If I Google it right now, it's probably going to take me off.
I am. It's called mitochondrial Eve. So I know it's called mitochondrial Eve, and that is a female in Africa.
Okay.
It's not an ape. So
worth noting that
every
Eve and Adam did not live at the same time.
Do what now?
Mitochondrial Eve and Adam.
I'm not claiming that mitochondrial Eve is the Eve of the Bible. I don't know when she lived. It's just stating that every single person alive today can trace their mitochondrial DNA to a single female, not an ape, an actual person. Every person alive on the planet today can trace their mitochondrial DNA to this individual.
Yeah.
You can also do it with an atom, but I'm not. It's about mutation rates. So there's really no way that we can determine if mitochondrial Eve or mitochondrial Adam or Y chromosome Adam actually lived at the same time, because you might have a different mutation rate. But my point is that it goes back to a human.
You could just go back further. You don't need to stop at mitochondrial Eve. That's not the end of the line. You can go back more than that.
That's the part where you're taking faith. So what we can test and observe is that it goes back to a human. And now you're just assuming that we can go back farther than that, and you'll eventually find an ape. But that's not what we see.
It's just as much faith to say that mitochondrial Eve exists as old world monkeys exist. It's literally the same.
No, it's not. There's plenty of scientifically peer-reviewed paper that talk about mitochondrial Eve.
Yeah, and old world monkeys also are also our ancestors.
That's a faith statement. I need the evidence for that, because again, our lineage. Okay, just saying no is not a refutation.
Okay, I agree. I agree with you. We're just gonna have to agree to disagree. I'll dig up whatever resource I can, and then I'll just message you about it. But yeah, so
all right. Yeah, appreciate you coming, man. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Take care.
All right, man. God bless. Chris. Oh, I can't see your whole name. CHRI11S1. I don't know how to say your name.
Sorry, what?
I don't know how to say your name. What's up, brother?
I actually joined more to talk about what you talked with someone else before, about Noah's Ark.
Okay.
I just have questions on how you think that whole operation actually worked.
The way the Bible says.
I mean, how do you think that they survived?
In a boat?
Yeah, in a boat that we know had one window. Like, there are things that just don't work.
Like what?
I mean, where are the animals gonna defecate? How are they not gonna eat each other? There is so many ways that it's not gonna work.
Okay, so it says it's one window, and it talks about it being 1 cubit high, but it doesn't say how wide. It could be one window that goes around the entirety of the top part of the ark. Nobody says that. And a window and ventilation are two different things, right? So, but regardless, where they defecate is probably in the floor, and that's why you probably had duties between 8 people. Was probably one of the duties was probably to scoop the poop. You know, you could work in 8-hour shifts or work in 12-hour shifts, have a couple of days on and off, and your job is to scoop poop. It's not. I mean, people do this today at zoos. I don't understand what the problem would be.
I mean, one person
that don't make no sense.
picking up poop might work if you have, say, 100 animals or 300. That's 6-point-something million.
What? 6 million? You think that there were 6 million animals on the ark?
I mean, I think there would have to be way more
You
than
guys
that.
never do any research on this, and then y'all just come out of the side of your neck and say just a crazy number. Do you know how many animals are probably on the ark?
Bible says all the animals that breathe.
Yeah,
not
so
all the animals that he could find that breathe.
That's not what it says. It's not what it says.
What does it
do you know
say?
how many animals? Do you know how many animals were on the ark?
I don't
On the low
know.
end, it's about 6,000. On the high end, it's about 20,000. Right. So Noah
Where do
didn't
you
have
get
to
those
take
numbers?
the Bible. Right. There's a study called baryometry. So that Noah didn't have to take a lion and a tiger on the ark because they're the same kind. He didn't have to take a longhorn cow, a brown cow, and a milk cow on the ark because you can get a cows out of that. The cows can speciate into different kinds of cows. I believe in microevolution. Noah didn't have to take all of the dogs that's ever existed on Noah's Ark. He only had to have 2 wolves. So you'll get all of the dogs, just like we have tested and observed. All of the dog breeds today come from wolves, right? So you don't need to have all of the dogs on the ark. So you went from millions to about 6,000 or 20,000 on the high end. So now that we know that, there's a study called baryometry. You're free to look into that, talking about the original kinds. So now that you know that it's actually not millions of animals and only about 6,000, or I'll even go 20,000 on the high end, does that make the job of them scooping poop a little bit easier or more manageable now?
I'm gonna need to see some more official wares where it actually says that, and not just
The study's called
apologists
baryometry. I'm not
actually
just
trying
I'm
to
not
make
making
it
up.
work.
I'm not making up words here. I literally gave it to you. I'm sorry. I'm on TikTok. I can't turn my camera around, or TikTok actually hits my live for that. It says I'm using an outside source. So that's why I'm giving you the words right now, so you can write them down and go look it up. Right? The study's called baryometry. It's a Hebrew word meaning original kinds. So that's why they named it after that. I may be messing the words up a little bit, but that's what it is. That's the study of the original kinds. And so once you add 2 of every kind and then 6 of the unclean, it's any, and there's room for plus and negative, because I don't know if every single elephant, you might have had a woolly mammoth and a regular African elephant. I don't know. But for the
But
most
then,
part, it's still not millions of animals. It's thousands of animals, not millions.
yeah, but then we are also gonna have to talk about the kinds, because the Bible actually does take stuff like a bat and says it's a bird, or the whale says it's a fish.
Yeah, so
They
that's just the
didn't
way
really
that
know
they
what they were talking about.
They did know what they were talking about. Just because Carius Linnaeus comes later and starts to come up with his kingdom, phylum, genus, and all that doesn't mean that the animals care. Just because people called a whale a fish, that's just what they called it. It doesn't that doesn't mean anything, right? They're not trying to do a classification system. It lives in the water. It has fins. They call it a fish. Just because we have classified now to mean that it's a mammal because of the classification system that we gave it, meaning that it gives live birth and breathes oxygen. Now it's classified as a mammal. They don't care. They still live in the same water. You can call it, what is this? Shakespeare, a rose by any other name is still a rose, right? So the fish by any other
Yes,
name
but
is still the same thing. But if you want to call it a mammal or what, have at it. Call it what you want to. But that doesn't mean that they were wrong. It just means that people classify things different.
the Bible never said that there was 6,000 animals on Noah's Ark. And they just
I never made that claim. I don't think you're listening. I never
What
made
do
the
you-
claim the
what do
Bible
you
said
say
there's
on that?
6,000.
What is-
I said there's a study called baryometry that does the original kinds. So Noah only had to take the land animals that had the breath of life in their nostrils. Insects breathe through their skin, so they can live just fine on floating debris mats. I'm not saying there wasn't insects on the ark. There's plenty enough room that they can be, but it's not something that Noah had to take on the ark. He only had to take the land animals that had the breath of life in their nostrils. And again, out of the original kinds of those animals, there's like 6,000, 8,000 of the animals that he had to take on the ark. So I'm even giving you guys the benefit of the doubt. We're going on the high end, which is 20,000. Still perfectly manageable.
You still
are
have a
grasping at
giant
straws.
problem about just a couple guys making such a big boat that needs to survive for more than seconds in water.
Okay, so Noah built the boat, but that doesn't mean that Noah didn't commission people. There still was an economy system back there where you bought and paid things. So there's no problem with Noah paying for labor to build a boat. Even if you don't believe
Sure,
in it,
but
you're still
even
going to
if you
get
look
paid
at
to build a
boats
boat. You still
today-
build it.
Sure,
what?
but even if you want to look at something like the Ark Museum, we still
Mhm.
had to build that with modern day tools, and just a couple years ago, it had a giant water problem.
Yeah, that's because they have piping and stuff in there. It's not floating. So the water problem did not come from the fact that it's floating. The water problem probably came from the fact that they have bathrooms and water fountains in there, hero.
The water problem I'm talking about definitely came from leakage due to rain, from what I remember.
Well, yeah, but how long is the ark been there now in today's atmosphere?
What?
Yeah, it's been there for a while in today's world, right? Noah's flood, it didn't
Where's
have
it-
to work but once. They
Where's-
were only on the ark for about 4 months before it landed.
That was
It
after
only had
only
to
2
float.
years, though.
Brother, listen to me. There has been plenty of seafaring vessels that had like the Mayflower and all of these that have floated just fine. Noah's Ark only had to float for about 4 months, and then it came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. So your contention is that it just couldn't happen. I'm sorry, man. It's ridiculous. It was absolutely possible for people to build a boat that could stay on the water for 4 months. I'm sorry, that's just a really bad
Sorry.
contention. You
Well,
got
no, no.
something better than that?
Are you pro Bible or
Am I
anti
pro-Bible?
Bible? I
Yes,
just
sir.
need a pro Bible.
Yeah, I'm pro Bible.
Yeah. All right. No. Good. Your the headline sort of it tells me that I thought you were anti Bible. To be honest with you, it says
I'm doing what?
Well, your thing says evolution is false.
Yeah.
The flood was real.
Yep.
Also,
Pre-trib isn't biblical.
Sorry, actually, I apologize. Yep.
No problem.
I'm dyslexic, so I'll be a bit stupid and not on the reading side of stuff, you know.
You're fine, brother. I'm dyslexic too.
But yeah, no, I agree with you. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
All
All three of us.
So, yes, yeah. So you see the fact that there's really not a problem, and every one of your contentions now has been refuted, right?
I wouldn't say refuted.
Okay, you're just going to continue to believe that there was millions of animals, even though that's not true,
Yeah,
and that people couldn't
not what
build a
happened.
boat that could float for 4 months.
I mean,
That's just ridiculous.
The idea that only we need this amount of creatures to get all the new ones, that's just not the conversation. You still
What
do you
need
mean?
millions
True, though.
different
Just
of
the
species.
the
What do
fact
you,
that he
brother? What
didn't
do you?
have
All of the population models fit us. It does.
Yeah,
You can just do. I'm not a Google guy, but just Google it. Could all of the elephants that exist on the world today come from 2 elephants that got off Noah's Ark 4,500 years ago? It's going to tell you yes.
yeah.
So the population models fit us. And then, hold on, brother, let me land this.
Nope,
And then we
nope.
see you're talking about speciation events. Yes, we've literally watched this in real time. All of the dogs that we see that are on the planet today literally came from two wolf kind of animals. And that's happened within our human ability to write these things down and see it. So,
Sure.
yes, there's more than enough time for this to happen.
I'm not gonna dispute that most canines are, or well, all canines are descended directly from dire wolves. But I mean, what's the best way of putting it?
His name is Lucy Green. She was killed last night around 11.
You're talking shit. Maybe. Just the
I
possibility.
got you, man. Well, I think your arguments have been refuted. If you don't have anything else, I'll just I'll kind of see what somebody else has, unless you have something else you want to bring up.
Yeah, soldiers from the base come into town all the time. If the coroner
And he left, so I guess not. Pidgey,
Sorry,
what's up,
mate.
man?
I thought you were against the Noah's Ark. Sorry about that. Just
I got you, brother. No problem. Yeah, I'm a Bible believing Christian, man. I'm here to defend the Word of God.
Just right. But here, just one question: do you believe that Catholics are Christians, or do you believe Catholics aren't Christians?
I think that anyone that follows Jesus Christ is a Christian.
As a Christian, yes. Amen.
I mean, there's
Amen, brother.
There's
Big
people
time.
that there's people that claim to be in every single group that are so. I don't subscribe
No,
to
it's just-
one religion. I subscribe to Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Well, I'm the same. Yeah. Well, it's just I get there's a big thing with the Catholic and the Protestant religion where Catholics, where Protestants say that Catholics aren't Christians, even though Catholics
Yeah,
were
man, I don't care to
Christians,
do that.
and we
that
were
argument, man.
actually
I don't like throwing rocks inside the tent. That's why I like to
we were-
fight evolutionists, not Christians.
Yeah, we were Christians before Protestants were Christians. You know what I mean? Before
All right, man.
that
Listen,
mom, before he
I
wanted the
appreciate you, man.
divorce, we were Christians.
All right,
yeah.
man. I appreciate you. Just not gonna
Yeah.
just gonna keep bringing it up. How do you say your name? Hyman Nunu? How do you say that? I don't know how to say that.
Hello.
HY. How do you say your name, brother? HYMNINNOIR.
Himenor.
Himenor. Okay, what's up, man? You there? Himenor going once, going twice. Sold.
Can I say that
No, Liam.
I would like to propose the idea. Would you associate?
Go ahead, Freeside. What's up, man? Or Fireside. Sorry, I seen your name wrong. Fireside. What's up, brother?
Yeah, I grew up Catholic, and it was only after Catholic school, that I learned that people find that there's incompatibility with Christianity and evolution, which was a complete shock to me. Let me just ask you a basic question. Why do you think Christianity and the understanding of evolution from a scientific point of view is incompatible with each other?
Because the Bible says that God made the earth on day 1 and the sun on day 4. Evolution says that the sun was made first and then the planet. The Bible says that the plants were made on day 3 and then the sun was made on day 4. Evolution teaches that the sun was here before the plants. The Bible says that the birds were made before the reptiles. Evolution says the reptiles were made before the birds. Evolution says that millions of things had to unalive for us to get here, and the Bible says that nothing unalived until Adam sinned. These things are not poetic; they are diametrically opposed to each other. One cannot be true and the other one be also true. If one is true, by default, the other one is false.
Why is it important to believe the stories written are literal? Why is that important to believe in Jesus Christ?
It's not that it's not. It's not a salvation thing. So it's not. You can believe in Jesus and believe in evolution.
What the fuck?
I would just question your.
Hola, sí, señor.
But it's the Catholic point of view.
Yeah, I would just question your consistency, right? Like, why do you believe that? If you believe that Jesus rose from the dead, then where are you getting that information? You're getting it from the Bible. So why do you believe it? Well, you believe it, and you have to believe it in an effort to be saved and be a Christian. So then why do you believe the part of? Hold on, brother. Why do you believe the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John part, but not the Genesis part? There's just no consistency there.
I don't think it's inconsistent. I would say that the Catholic Church and every just Catholic and even the Jesuit. I grew up around Jesuit and God, now my brain is farting right now. But basically, you have even just this scholastic part of the Catholic Church.
Spit it out, dumbass.
Oh my gosh.
So
what's going on?
So basically, the point I'm making is that
Yapatron.
That Catholics don't have any. They don't show any inconsistency here. You're saying that there's inconsistency in these belief systems, that you have to believe whatever the Bible says literally, which I think that it's even more valuable to look at it from a parabolistic point of view.
Well, I don't like the way you phrased it. I would say that there is things that's not meant to be taken literal in the Bible. Like when it says that, the sun stood still. I understand that that's people giving a story from their perspective. It's not wrong to say the sun stood still because the sun stopped in the sky. But technically it was the earth that was rotating that stopped. But that's no different than me saying today, I watched a beautiful sunset. Well, technically the sun didn't set, it's the earth spinning, right? So it would be no different than that. I take the things that are meant to be literal, and I take the things that are meant to be semantically. And then how do I determine which one is which? Well, I can look at the book of Genesis, and I do not see where it's not meant to be taken literal. It gives you, it has way too much detail in it for it to be a parable. It literally gives you the chronological events all the way back to Adam. It tells you this one begot that one and begot that one. It goes through meticulous detail in an effort for people. There's just no way you can read it and say that this was meant to be not literal. The writers meant it to be literal by how much detail they gave. They literally preferenced the morning and each day is preferenced with 3 time periods. You have a chronological time period, meaning the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth day. You have the word yom, the first day, the second day. That's a period of time. And then you have each one of those days preferenced with a singular evening and a morning. The Bible literally went out of its way to make sure that you cannot mistranslate this to think that there's long periods of time in there, because each day is a singular evening and a singular morning. That's why I think these things are literally meant to be literal, so that's why I take them as literal. And the evidence clearly supports it.
Okay. I don't know about the last part you said, but just these are human beings creating these stories, and they reinforce their stories later on with new stories. Especially when you look at what they talk about as prophecy. To fulfill the prophecy in the New Testament, you have to have the Old Testament stories. And so a lot of these chronological events kind of, they are clearly reading, in my view. I believe that they're reading these and they're kind of writing in context to those. So, I mean, you could say, oh, well, it all makes sense because of all these chronological events kind of confirm themselves with later stories. Perhaps there's inconsistency.
Well, you're saying something like this was, like it's written by humans. The implication there would clearly be that there's problems with it. So do you have any examples of those? Because I think that it was divinely inspired by the Holy Spirit, so I don't see any problems. So if you have any, the implication is that it's written by humans, so therefore it's flawed. Do you have any examples of that?
Well, I mean, I don't think there's any evidence that it was divinely inspired. You'd have to start with the presupposition that this divinity exists to begin with, and that's purely faith.
I can see the exact opposite. I can see the exact opposite when I think that it was divinely inspired. Like these individuals that wrote this book 2,000 years ago didn't understand the scientific fields that we would have today. I forget the specific name of this scientific field that they do, but it's matching names. It's something starts with an S, if I'm not mistaken. But what they do is they can match names, and you can tell the origins of a name. Like my last name is Johnson. So then the origin of that is German, if I'm not mistaken. So there's that study that determines where these names come from, right? So we can put these on some of the Bible books to determine if they're actually true or not, like the Gospel of Mary or the Gospel of Barnabas. We know that these are later forgeries because the names that the individuals writes down in an effort to give validity to the story are not names that are common in the first century. We can go back to the ossuaries, we can go back to the records by the Jews, and we can see common names. Like, for example, Jesus called people not only by their name, but he also gave them nicknames. This is Simon, also called Peter. And the reason he had to do this is because the name Peter was so common that he had to differentiate the names. This is Peter Bar Jonas. This was this one, that one, right? Because the names are so common, not only did he give them names, he gave them nicknames. So when we can take this field of science and we can put it and see that the Gospel of Barnabas and the Gospel of Mary have names in it from the 3rd century that don't match the 1st century, we understand that later people made these books in an effort to insert, themselves, if they will, or insert their theology in the Bible. But however, when we see that Luke was commissioned to go write for a man named Theophilus, they sent Luke as an investigator. And Luke was a meticulous in his writing. Every scholar agrees that Luke was clearly educated, and he gave very, very, very specific details. Details at the time which you wouldn't understand why. He literally says this man's wife, I forget her name, I could look it up for you if you want me to, followed Jesus, and her husband's name was Gocius. I'm probably getting that wrong. It's Gocius or Creosius or something along those lines. And in passing, you wouldn't think nothing. It says his rank too. He was a steward in Herod's house. So you would think, why is Luke giving you not only the woman's information, but he's also giving the information of the husband, his name, and his rank within the house? Well, they didn't understand that we can go back now 2,000 years later and we can look and see the name that Luke gave this individual is actually Nabatean in origin. What is a Nabatean doing with a high rank in the house of a Galilean? So scholars will come out and say this proves that Christians were just adding names in, right, in an effort to try to backdate validity to the Bible. Because Luke literally states, I interviewed eyewitnesses who claims that Jesus rose from the dead. He's investigating this. Well, we can actually now go to Josephus, and I'm about to land. I know it's long. Let me just land right here and I'll let you talk. We can go to Josephus, who actually puts these two together. Josephus says that Herod actually had a treaty with the Nabateans, and they intermarried, meaning that he married the princess of the Nabateans in an effort to solidify this arrangement. And Josephus, it's called an undesigned coincidence when you have two different separate sources that accidentally confirm each other and not meaning to. So Josephus tells us why Herod had a Nabatean in such a high rank in his household. So this shows us that Luke was actually an eyewitness because he gets all of the things right. He gets the dates right, he gets the times right, he gets the locations right, he gets the names right. This adds validity that he was actually an eyewitness and that what he said is true. And what he said was that he was interviewing eyewitnesses that claimed that they saw Jesus rise from the dead.
So just talking about the Gospel of Luke, though, I mean, I would argue that there's not concrete evidence that this gospel was written by Luke himself. There's plenty to say that that these passages they don't even name a narrator, for example. And I think you're making an argument about like the vocabulary. You're making an argument using the vocabulary as support, correct?
That's a scientific field, and it's the names. But yes, and there's different ones. I mentioned earlier that the Pool of Bethesda. The Pool of Bethesda actually shows that the way that they described it in the book of John is absolutely the way that they found it, and it shows that it was destroyed in the temple. It was destroyed with the temple in 70 AD. So this shows that John was actually written before 70 AD, which puts it at the lifetime of the eyewitnesses, which is what it claims. Secondly, you said that these individuals didn't sign their name. Nobody did back then. That's not how it was, right? But what we do have is unanimously. This is only a 21st century argument, with only one exception, I think, of the Book of John by somebody in the 4th century, if I'm not mistaken. Other than that, it's absolutely unanimous as to who wrote the Gospels. There's never been not one claim that anyone else wrote the Gospels. So why would we not go when it's unanimous from literally the time it was written until today that the author of this book right here was Mark? There's no other evidence to go with. So why would we now in the 21st century go, yeah, I'm just going to believe that somebody else wrote it? What evidence? Literally none.
You say
Literally
it's
none.
unanimous, but I don't know that there's any unanimous consensus on this. I think you'd have to show me what you mean by that.
Give me one example of anyone claiming. I gave the one, I think it was in the 4th century. Outside of that, give me one single example, and that was with only one gospel. Give me one single example where anyone going through church history, the 1st century, 2nd century, 3rd century, 4th century, all the way up to today, give me one example of someone claiming, other than the 21st, which is modern day, give me one example of someone saying, I don't think Matthew actually wrote Matthew. I don't think Mark wrote Mark, or Luke wrote Luke, or John wrote John. That's what I mean by unanimous. The church fathers, the church history, all say the authors were Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Well, I'm sure they would like it to be perceived that way, but I don't think that they even provided evidence for them to be those authors.
You're doing an argument. You're doing an argument from absence, brother.
Well,
They
no,
do, by the way.
Like you're just the
what evidence
evidence
has the church
leans
provided?
towards it being Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and you're just saying, nuh-uh.
Well, I don't
You
see
can't-
any
you can't
evidence
prove it.
provided that they were. They're just
Literally all
they're
of
just saying
history,
it
man.
is.
What are you talking about? I'm not seeing that, but they're not. It's not just that they're saying it. All of them are saying it. If it was not true, then you would think one person would come forward and say, no, I wrote that. Why would they not want to get? Why would they not? If you're going to forge a document, you're going to want your name, or not forge. If you're going to put say that this was written by you, right? You're going to want the credit for it, or somebody's going to say somebody else wrote it. But it's all the only evidence that we have is that they wrote it. It's not just like all of it. It's the only evidence. So if you're going to go against it, you have to bring some kind of evidence, unless you're just saying, I choose to believe that they didn't write it.
Else can go. I have some noise in the background.
Oh, yeah, you do.
Paul also says in one of the books that he wrote that you heard from my dear friend Luke.
Mhm.
You heard from my dear
Yeah,
friend
and
Luke, which means he wrote letters.
in the book of Acts, Luke's write down individuals, and there's been archaeological discoveries that actually, when they've turned over rocks, they've seen that the individuals that Luke mentioned in it are not only have the names but the correct ranks of the areas that Luke said that they were supposed to be. So when Luke writes down Paul's trial, Luke mentions the individuals' names at the time. Like, this was so and so who he was in charge of this trial, and they put Paul on trial. Luke mentions those names. We know that those names are real names. We can go to outside sources from Rome and determine that these individuals actually existed. We can see it in archaeological evidence that they actually existed. And Luke gets their names, ranks, and titles and everything correct. And because Paul's letters actually go back to those dates, any individual that was alive at that time could have went and interviewed the people in it. Hey, man, this guy Luke is actually running around claiming that you put this guy named Paul on trial for claiming that he saw Jesus on the road to Damascus. He also mentions your wife's name. So did you guys actually put Paul on trial? Clearly, those individuals could test it at the time. Christianity would have ended like this because it was so easy to determine, because it was written within the lifetimes of the guys who were claimed in the book. And this is why there's literally no other evidence that anybody wrote the Gospels except for Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So I think it's kind of ridiculous to claim that we don't know who wrote it when the only evidence that we have is that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John was written by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Yeah, and another reason, I don't know if you mentioned it, Creation, but another reason as to why they were renamed in the New Testament is because in the Old Testament, the angel of the Lord renamed Jacob, and the Lord renamed Abraham and Sarah from Abram and Sarah to Abraham and Sarai. So they had to show a distinction between who was able to rename people, who had the power to rename people, just like in the book of Revelation. We don't even know our names in the end.
Yeah,
Only
well, I
we will
mean,
know our names.
Hey, can I
yeah,
say
we
something,
don't.
Creation?
Yeah, man, go ahead.
Irenaeus, a direct disciple of John the Apostle, by the way, he goes as far to even say that Matthew wrote the original manuscript in Hebrew, the original language,
He does. Yep.
and that the rest wrote the rest. That's a strong claim to make if you don't know him, right?
Yeah, so I mean that's my, I think textual criticism shows us that these gospels were actually written before 70 AD. Mainstream scholarship that says the gospels were written afterwards, their main contention. There's some more others, but the main contention is that they couldn't have been written prior to 70 AD because prophecy isn't real. So the fact that Jesus said that this temple will be destroyed and there not be one stone left on another literally had to be written after that because they just don't believe that Jesus could prophesy things. That's literally how they date it. And that's begging the question, right? That's saying, I don't believe in prophecy, so it had to come after 70 AD. That's not how you date things, right? So the internal evidence shows us that a lot of these were written before 70 AD for the reasons that I just gave.
I wanted to go back to Luke, though, and in Luke 1 through 4, are you familiar with the passage?
Yeah, when he's talking about writing to Theophilus.
Damn, you know your shit. Okay, so you know what I'm going to argue. You don't believe that this is in reference to somebody later on who is recalling, spoken word about previous events.
No, so there's several different contentions on this. Either this was his name or a type of title, or he's referring to him as a lover of God. So Theo and then Apollos. Theo, God, Apollos, lover of. That's the way I understand it. So some people believe that he might be writing, but what we see is that it appears that Luke was commissioned to go investigate these things, and that's clearly what he's stating that he's doing. So I think that your love is froze for me. I think you mean your live. Is my live frozen for anyone else?
No, you're good here.
Yeah. All right. Twin Dragon D says I'm frozen, but all right, I'm good for everybody else. So
it says that the traditional scholarly position is that Luke, physician and companion of Paul, wrote it based on personal travel with Paul, plus interviews and research. In Luke 1 through 4, explicitly says the author compiled accounts from eyewitnesses, an unusual authorial admission of secondhand research for ancient biography. So the contention here is that these are people maybe who are, 100 years later, or because we don't know exactly when. It was sometime in the mid-second century when this was.
That's called the we passages. I'm sorry, there's a little bit of a delay. I wasn't trying to cut you off.
No. I would say the we passages is perhaps a different argument, but the way that they were using we, that's the vocabulary argument. The way that they use we in the Greek text is different than how we were using it later on in contemporary literature.
My fault.
He goes from being an individual that's investigating it to basically joining them. That's what we see there. So he starts investigating Christianity, and then he joins with Paul. That's what the we passages are. We went here, we went there, right?
But we as in like them themselves, or we as in like the broader sense?
Like Luke was there. Like Luke was an eyewitness. Not only did he gather eyewitness testimony to send to a man named Theophilus, he also joined the calls.
Hey, another thing is some church fathers interpret that as oath of office as anybody that loves God, that wants to hear the truth about God. Some of them do.
Right. So that's what I said, Theo and then Apollos. So they do believe it's lover of God, but it's still, it's not just writing it to anyone. He is commissioned to write it to an individual. Naturally, they kept it and went out to everyone. So, but it appears that some high-ranking person, probably a Roman, commissioned Luke to go investigate these things, because Luke starts off with the investigation by telling them, "Oh, Theophilus," and he tells them, "This is what I found, and I have Luke makes some big claims here. He said a lot of people have attempted to write down what's happened, and they've brought it to me, so I'm using secondhand knowledge, which is it sounds weird at first, but this is actually what we want in the 21st century. We want an investigator, an educated man who's outside of this to go in there and check it out. Hey, go tell me what these Christians are doing over here. Give me an account." And then he gives them an account. And then also it appears that clearly he joined the cause, because we can see the passages of him with Paul.
It's hard for new people, and especially like lapsed Christians, to get back into Christianity when the notion is we have to believe the Bible literally. Especially when you're looking at things as profound and important to the story of Jesus, like the impregnation of Mary, right? Like to have her immaculately conceive of Jesus. It's just, it's a great story. Don't get me wrong. I think that's part of the draw of a lot of this. But to literally believe that, I don't think is important to have faith.
Well, I would say this, that if you believe that Jesus came to this earth, that he went alive for your sins, and that God the Father rose him again on the third day, that's it. That's it for salvation. That's all you need for salvation. Now, being saved and being a Christian is two different things. A Christian means follower of Christ. The man on the cross that Jesus saved in the last moments of his life was not a follower of Christ. He never got down off of that cross in an effort to change his ways or to show people, to live a Christian life and to follow him. He just believed in him in the last moments of his life, and Christ accepted him. So he was saved, but he wasn't a Christian. So I think people need to be, those two things are not synonymous. You can be Christian and not be saved. And you can be saved and not be a Christian. Now, if you're going to be saved, then you need to be a Christian, obviously, because once you get saved, then you're going to produce good fruit. And the Bible says they'll be known by their fruit. But you can still accept Christ in the last moments of your life, and he still would accept you. I don't know that I would push it that long, because you might end out before you make it. But you still can, and the Bible clearly shows us that. So when you say that you have to believe the Bible per se, well, like I said earlier, I believe the things that are meant to be believed as far as literal, and then some of the things that are meant to be taken semantic, I use the context of the Bible to interpret the Bible. I don't understand everything, and I reserve the right to be wrong about a lot of things, but some of the things I can clearly see, like I can read it for myself and determine that this is literally meant to be taken literal. And some of these things are not up for negotiation. Like you can't say, well, I believe that Jesus is not God. Well, then you're not saved, right? That's like one of the fundamentals. You have to believe that. I don't believe that Jesus actually rose from the dead. Well, then you're not saved, because you actually have to believe that. But as far as the other things, man, you don't have to believe. You can still believe in evolution. You can still believe in all of these different things. I think it's ridiculous, but what I think doesn't matter. It's about Jesus. You can still be saved. I think you're going to get a rack in the back of the head when you get up to heaven, because he's going to say, why didn't you just trust what I said? But you can still be saved.
Do you think it's important to believe in the Trinity to be saved?
I think it's impossible not to. I think you cannot believe. You can't say that I trust in Jesus and then say that I don't know who he is, because that's different. You're trusting in the wrong Jesus, right? Jose is a great guy, but his name is Jose and not Jesus. Just because they're spelt the same doesn't mean it's actually Jesus. So yeah, the Bible clearly teaches us in the Old Testament, New Testament, that there is a Trinitarian viewpoint. There's one God in three distinct persons.
Yeah, hey, Fireside. Whenever you read John 1:1, and in Scripture, it does say that Jesus is the Word of God. You'll see it in 2 Corinthians. It says that he is the Word. So in John 1:1, when it says, in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and then the Word dwelled in the flesh, tabernacled among us, what do you think that means? In the beginning was the Word. Christ laid the foundations of the earth before the foundations of the earth. He was the first living of all creation. So therefore, he in the beginning was Christ, and the Word was God. So Christ was God. Christ was incarnate. right? So it says that Jesus is the physical image or the visible image of the invisible God. So whenever you see the angel of the Lord in the Old Testament, you have to remember that John says no man has seen the face of God and lived. So did Abraham see the Father? Did Sarah see the Father? Did Jacob wrestle with the Father? Did Moses see the backside of the Father? It was Jesus, man. Or else the
Amen.
Bible's a lie. Or else the Bible is a
Yeah.
lie. Because no man has seen the face of God and lived.
I don't know that I
Amen.
would call the Bible a lie, but I do believe in kind of an anthropological perspective on the Bible as a useful tool to create cultural hegemony. I think that's the primary use for it, to create some cultural norms and governance among tribes. I think that is very likely, even if you were to believe that the Bible is literally true or not. I think that it was used in that fashion. Do you
Well,
agree or
that's
disagree?
because that's what it's for. I mean, that's literally what the Bible's for. Like the book of Deuteronomy is a law about government, right? So that's called a typology. Like you can get that's what the Bible's for. So what's your viewpoint on the Trinity?
Well, I mean, I'm atheist, so I'm not gonna say I believe in any of it. I'm just saying that I think that it's served a purpose for excuse me, cultures globally. So it's
But
also, you know,
do you know the two commandments that are under grace now because we're under grace? Do you know the two commandments?
I'm sorry, the two commandments for what?
Yes, sir. The two commandments in the New Testament. You got to remember the Testament means covenant. So there was an old covenant and now there's a new covenant. So under grace, what are the two commandments?
Honestly, I can't remember. It's been a while since I've took theology.
Love your God with all your mind, soul, and strength, and love others. Treat everyone as you do unto you. Those are the only two. How is that going to shape a government?
Oh, well, I think that, you know, cultures and government societies have collapsed because you had men claiming to be God, right? And I think that, you know, having that first covenant or commandment is important to put that authority outside of man's control. Because if you have a way for man to claim themselves to be otherworldly, you know, they can command a lot of people to bend to their moral will, and I don't think that is that you know, that's not good for society in general, right? For man to claim themselves to be God and to govern based on that notion, like the pharaohs, for example. um, so so anyway, that's kind of my perspective on it. I think that it was there's a useful result for having that
Well,
covenant.
I thought you was a Christian, so I was coming at you a little bit different. But so let me get your perspective on this now, because if you're an atheist, then how do you reconcile with the fact that there's never been an archaeological discovery that goes against the Gospels? Why does all the archaeological discoveries that we've made so far actually support what the Gospels say? If these are people just kind of making this stuff up.
Well, I don't know. No. I don't view that people are just making stuff up. Perhaps a lot of these stories are based on real life events. But are these people referenced and these names given actual people, or are they just characters to embody the story or to help the story move along?
Yeah, but all of
I
it
think,
all of it was for Jesus rising. For that's the essential event, that Jesus rose from the dead. All of these other stories go into that to support that viewpoint. So why is it that, and I already went through the names, so if you say people are making up names, they did a heck of a job, because we can go back 2,000 years from now and determine that these names are actually common to the time and the area. So you're just going to have to say that they made them up on the spot during the first century. That doesn't make any sense, especially when the people were alive. They could go test it.
no, I mean, you're talking about hundreds of years from the very beginning where they had plenty of discussions in groups, trading information perhaps to create a story that complies with itself. I don't know, man.
That
I'm
hurts
just
you even more. Now, the more hands you get in it, the more problems you're going to get. But anyway, man, listen, I appreciate the conversation, man. Listen, I think you should look into textual criticism. If you got any additional questions, man, I'd love to share Christ with you more. But yeah, look into this stuff, man. I think that if you, I'm not going to let him go just yet.
Okay.
If you have any additional questions, if you want to talk to me in private, send me a message or whatever. I'd love to share Christ with you more. But I think if you keep an open mind and you keep looking, the Bible says, ask, seek, knock. So if you keep asking the right questions, man, and you're actually seeking for the truth, you will find it. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
Go ahead.
It's a church father in the 4th century that quotes the whole New Testament before we ever have a Bible or a compiled Bible.
Well, I mean, I can't refute anything like that. I'm more of the mindset that I think that science and religion are totally compatible, or at least Christianity is totally compatible with each other. And I think that Christianity would probably be more open, would have more doors open to people who are less literal in how they read the Bible, if they would just simply say, hey, these stories aren't necessarily like literal. These are passages.
We do. Catholics do.
Right. Like, and I grew up Catholic, so I'm already of that mindset. I started by saying, I was kind of in shock when I entered college that there were Christians out there who believe the Bible literally, and they believe in things like, these terms like firmament and stuff. This wasn't something that was really taught to us in theology as a critical point of faith. These notions that the Earth is only 6,000 years old is just foreign to me.
You know how you say that science and God or Christianity is compatible. Do you know the mystery behind vitamin K?
The mystery?
Yes, there's a mystery behind vitamin K in the book of Genesis that God proved science way back when. Have you ever heard about that?
No.
Well, I don't know the exact percentage, but I think it's like 10% a baby gets vitamin K whenever they're born. And up until the 8th day, they don't get any more. Yes. They don't get any more than at the bare minimum. Well, after the 8th day, that's when it skyrockets to like 210%. And they don't know why. But in the Bible, it says, do not circumcise your child until after the 8th day, because they will bleed out. Well, with the vitamin K, it causes the baby not to bleed out. Obviously, now whenever we get to where we are to modern day, we're able to have advances. But in Scripture, in the book of Genesis, it says, "Do not do it until after the 8th day." And we just proved that recently.
Empirical evidence? I'm sure they had empirical evidence back then of all these babies getting infections and unaliving because of the process being too early or whatever. And the
trial and error.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what
I think if trial and error, then you would stop if this wasn't a commandment from God and trial and error showed that all your babies unalived, I think you would stop the event before it went any farther, right? If all of these babies were unaliving before you could get to the 8th day, then clearly you wouldn't say, well, let's just keep going until we find the perfect day. No, you would say stop it.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. That's what I was saying, because he said he's sure that they had something. I'm like, trial and error, that's the only thing, because you got to see how far you can go, because like, okay, let's try it on the 6th day. Let's try it on the 5th day.
They were very much doing trial and error. I mean, look at what they discovered, way back, what was it, like 400 AD or so, 300, 400 AD.
I got you,
when
brother.
It came to, what the
I got a question for you.
revolution around the sun was. It wasn't a perfect circle, it was an ellipse. So they worked out through scientific method and mathematical, theories of what is likely to be true, right? We've been doing this without God, without any sort of religious basis for anything.
I got you, brother. I'm gonna move to the next guest, but you're welcome to stay, and I do appreciate the conversation, man. Thank you.
Yeah, I've got to get back to work anyway. Okay.
Yeah, man. Thank you for the conversation, brother. Alan, what's up, man?
What's up? How are you doing tonight?
Doing good, brother. Hope you are.
Thank you. I just had a few questions. What you believe, where you stand.
Okay.
How old do you think the Earth is, or how old does the Bible claim the Earth is?
The Bible doesn't claim how old the Earth is. I would say it's less than 10,000. That's just my belief system. But honest answer is I don't know.
You don't know, and where do you base that number off of?
The lineage is in Genesis.
Okay, so you are technically using the Bible, right?
Yeah, that's. But I said I believe that, so it's not something that I would like argue over, unless for specific points I might. But yeah, that's my contention.
Okay, so you believe that the Earth is 10,000 years old, just so I understand.
Less than 10,000, but yes.
Less than 10,000. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Are you familiar with the half-life of isotopes?
Yes.
You are? Okay.
Yes.
So, if you are familiar with that concept of how, as time progresses in an isotope attempt to become stable, right, it will shave off its neutrons in order to to return to that original stable state, right? And
it goes from a mother state to a daughter state. Uranium decays into lead. Yeah.
Essentially. So, do you know?
What do you mean essentially? That's what happens.
You understand that there are naturally occurring instances of this in nature, correct?
I think. Are you talking about radiometric decay? Yes, it's naturally occurring. Yes.
Yes. So you do understand that it takes hundreds of millions of years for some of these elements to reach that point.
That's what your claim is.
That's not a claim.
So we can look at
that's an observed fact.
No, it's not.
Can you explain
what
how
is
that's not an observed fact?
Yes. So there's three fundamental flaws whenever you do radiometric dating. One, you have to assume the parent material to the daughter material. Two, you have to assume the decay rate remains constant. And three, you have to assume that it's in a closed system. We know the last one's not tenable at all. There's no closed system on the planet. You have leaching, and every single one of these, every single dating technique you have has leaching. And then we know that I will give you the decay rate. I will say that that's constant because it's a nuclear force. But I want to just demonstrate how silly that is, but even though I'll grant it, let me just demonstrate how silly that is. We've been observing the decay rate for 100 years, and it hasn't changed. So therefore, anything past carbon-14 goes into the billions of years. Carbon-14 goes into about 50,000, 60,000 years. But anything outside of that goes into the billions. So you want to tell me that we can extrapolate because we have watched it for 100 years remain constant, so therefore for a billion years it remains constant? I think that is an outrageous extrapolation, but just for the case of argument as far as testable and observable information, we've seen it stay the same, so that's the one that I'll grant. And then the first one, you have to assume the daughter and parent material, meaning that if you open up a zircon crystal, and just to make the math simple, let's say that uranium decays into lead at a constant half-life of 1 billion years, just to make the math simple. If you opened up a zircon crystal and you saw 50% uranium and 50% lead, then you would have to assume that when it all started with nothing but uranium. And then you'd say, okay, it's 50% uranium, it's 50% lead, so therefore it's 1 billion years old. But you don't know how much lead was in it when it started. And you're just assuming that it was all uranium.
Well,
that's a fatal assumption that you have to make.
It's a simple assumption, right? It's a major assumption, and it's a proven theory.
That's my point. It's a major assumption. It's not simple. It's major. That's a problem.
It's a proven theory.
Proven what? That you have to assume?
That the equation
that don't make no sense what you just said.
The equation is correct.
The mathematical, the equation's not the problem. It's the assumptions that you have in it. That's the problem, not the mathematics. I done granted you the decay rate. Let me give you an example. You and I walk into. I'm going to give you.
I understand the concept.
I'm going to. Okay, let me help you out. You and I. This is going to be an analogous thing here.
I understand.
Okay, then just follow me. Then let's see if you understand it. Okay, you and I walk into a room. In the corner of this room that we're at, there is a candle that's lit. It's burning. and I ask you, hey, Alan, when was the candle lit? Do you know? You don't know. So let's go do some science.
In this imaginary scenario, yes, I do not know.
Okay, so let's do some science. We go up to the candle and we measure the candle. Okay, it's 9 inches tall. And we wait 1 hour. And now it's 8 inches tall. And then we wait another hour. And now it's 7 inches tall. So now we can determine that the decay rate is 1 inch an hour. When was the candle lit? You're never going to know the answer to that question
one second.
unless you assume the height of the candle. And you can get whatever age you really want based off the assumption of the height of the candle.
Yes.
You're
that
never
would
going to be
true.
able to answer that.
So if there, okay, let's say
The decay. Hold on. Let me just land this, and I promise you I'll let you answer. I promise you. But I want you to understand that the decay rate in my scenario remained constant. The observable evidence that we saw was that it went from 9 inches to 7 inches. It was in a closed system, and the decay rate remained constant. The assumption will still mess up the entirety of all of the evidence. You're never going to know the answer to that unless you assume how tall it was. Go ahead.
Okay, so you said a lot there. I'm going to try to hold on 1 second. Let me process what you're saying here. So you're saying that in the short span of time that we've learned about this method and used it, right? That makes it unreliable for
the assumptions that go in it, brother. That's my point. You don't know how much uranium, just because you find uranium and lead inside of a zircon crystal, you don't know how much lead was in it, and that will mess up your entirety. What if I told you that I absolutely...
Yes, but that would only be true if they didn't cross-reference them, and then it would they verify each other. You know, uranium
No, they don't.
238. That's incorrect. That's bad faith. Uranium 238 and uranium 253 verify each other, and then the equation works for both something that is an older element and younger element.
It's called concurrent or congruent, right? That's what you're talking about. It's congruent. It's when the two nuclear clocks match up. That's the ones that they use. I would grant you that that's no, they don't. That's not true at all. And then you got to read the very specific scientific study that you're doing it on. Whatever they're doing in this on, you have to look at what their congruent model is. And some really good studies will use like a 0.1 or 1% congruent, and then other studies can use up to 10%. There's no universal. So in other words, they can look at it and say this one is within 10% of congruent with this one, so therefore they match. That we're going to call it congruent because we've slapped on a 10% margin of error. 10% is a lot. Now, I'm not saying they all do that, but you actually have to read the paper because there's no universal.
The model is correct. I mean, even if it's 10% off, what is that? 4
Brother,
million
you're not contending with the argument. That's the thing. I can say it's congruent based off of the percentage that I can add to it. Okay? But even if I was to grant you that first of all, they're not perfectly, but even if I was to grant you that they're perfectly congruent, you still have to assume that because there's only 4 involved, right? You got 2 uraniums that decay into 2 leads. That's not really hard. If I had dice, 4 of them, and I rolled them, the mathematical probability of 2 dice landing on 6 and 2 dice landing on 1, which the 6 would decay into 1, might be a high number, but it's not astronomical. You will get that a lot of times. Right? So to have congruency out of 2 radiometric material inside of a zircon crystal is not that unheard of. It's not that hard to think that you could still get leaching and still be within 10% of each other for them to call it congruent. You still have to assume that all of the lead in it decayed from the uranium. You have to assume that. You have to make that assumption. You don't know that. And your assumptions is what you're making the problem of.
Look, so listen. Why would they... I understand what you're saying. I get it. And I'm not saying that there's this foolproof equation that we run on elements that tells us exactly how old they are, right? That hasn't been achieved yet. But with the information we do have and what we've observed on how these elements act, how these atoms act, right? It's beyond a reasonable doubt, right?
No.
These equations...
I can show you known examples of where it don't work.
These equations are accurate enough so the theory is correct. You know, like, if this was, like, completely if this equation didn't work at all, then there wouldn't be a consensus agreement on it. Like when it comes to they do.
A consensus agreement's an argument from majority, and you literally have to come up with other fields of science in an effort to prop up radiometric dating because it doesn't work. You have to come up with wiggle matching. You have to understand what the Hallset Plateau is. You have to understand what the marine reservoir effect is, because all of these things add different aspects to it. If it just worked, you wouldn't need to come up with all of these different propping up methods in an effort to make it work. It doesn't work.
Of course, like I said, it's not foolproof. I understand that, but it's a better explanation.
So you just got to come up with all of the. It's a
better explanation
because it fits your world model.
It's not a world model. It's an explanation. It's either I don't know, it's God, or this is an actual equation, the empirical equation, right? That proves, or that somewhat proves, that it's a little older than we think it is.
If there was a problem with the Bible, right, and if there was like an archaeological find or something that says, hey, this is Jesus's bone box, right, and let's just say, just in my make-believe world, that this absolutely, unequivocally, without a doubt, was true, that this is the bone box of Jesus and it actually contained the bones of Jesus. That means that Jesus didn't rise from the dead, and that clearly the Bible is false. And then I wrote another book, right, a new book today, that rescued that and said, no. Here's this new book that I wrote, and this is actually what it means. Would that now be acceptable because I'm coming up with another field in an effort to prop up the field? Or would you say, hey, look, if it don't stand on its own, then it's not scientific, right? It can't be true if it don't stand on its own.
Well, no,
that's what radiometric dating is. It don't stand on its own, so you've got to come up with all of these different fields in an effort to try to make it work.
Okay, listen, is the Earth flat?
No.
Okay, so do you know that 2,000 years ago we agreed that it was, right?
Yeah, that's an argument for majority. That's why I told you not to use that. Wouldn't help you.
So once again, it's actually not an argument to a majority. What I'm saying is the research builds on itself, and if something is wrong, it's going to be disproven. So if there's a consensus, meaning people are actively disproving it daily, and it still holds for this time, then it wouldn't have the credibility that it does. So I'm not trying to say that, everyone thinks
that's an argument for majority.
So if people are actively trying to debunk it, right? Because scientists are always trying to figure out why something happened, and they're never satisfied with one answer, right? Unless it's the law of gravity, you know.
I can show you where that's not true. I can literally give you an example where that's not true. Let's see if
you can show me one example. I'm sure you can, but that doesn't disprove my.
No, I can show you more. I can show you how scientists, in spite of their evidence of what they're finding, in spite of what science says, they will go the opposite conclusion because it does not fit their worldview. Dinosaur soft tissue and DNA fragments being found in dinosaurs, and yet all of the mainstream scientists, despite the evidence, in spite of the evidence, they will still claim that it's a fact that dinosaurs lived 65 million years ago, even though the scientific research unequivocally shows that they couldn't have.
You have to show me that, because I don't believe that's true.
Soft tissue and DNA fragments in dinosaurs. We know what the degradation rates of collagen is, and we know what the degradation rates of DNA is. We've got other scientifically peer-reviewed papers on the degradation rates of collagen. That's the soft tissue that they're finding.
Yeah, can you show me
this
that
is 20
study?
years old now.
Can you show me this?
Yeah, you don't.
I'm
no
being
problem.
honest. I'm not going to be like, fuck you.
I got you.
Show me.
I got you, man. Nope. I got you. No problem. Hold on one second. Let me pull it up. So you want the soft tissue or the DNA? Either. Soft tissue, you can actually watch that on 60 Minutes because that's like 20 years old. Let's go to the DNA. That's something newer. So the name of this paper is The Evidence of Proteins, Chromosome, Chemical Markers of DNA in Exquisitely Preserved Dinosaur Cartilage 2020. The doctor that did this, the scientist that did this was Mary Schweitzer. Okay, go ahead.
I would like you to repeat the title.
Yeah, no problem. Evidence of Proteins, Chromosomes, and Chemical Markers of DNA in exceptionally preserved dinosaur cartilage, and this was done in 2020.
All right, I'm gonna go on mute. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, no problem. When you come back, I'll pick it back up. Let's see if I don't know how to say his name again. The guy that helped me out last time's not here. I don't even know if he's going to be able to join or not. He had connection problems last time.
dude, you got somebody in the comments that is saying that the pyramids prove that the flood wasn't real. And then I said, Noah came before Moses. He goes, Noah wasn't real. I said, then why are you mentioning the flood? What a goofball. He's like, pyramids prove that the flood wasn't real. I was like, the Egyptians? It's like, yeah. I was like, okay,
Wait, hold
after
on.
the flood.
Wait, I have a quick question for the host. So,
Yeah, man.
what does this study exactly prove?
That they're finding dinosaur DNA
Where?
in the paper.
That they're finding dinosaur DNA.
Yeah. And we know what the half-life of DNA is, so you can't find DNA in something that's 65 million years
What
old.
I'm
brother.
taking from this is, the paper is saying that scientists are like finding evidence that like material, like from the dinosaurs, right? Like the DNA has survived
Yeah.
for 75 million years.
That's my point. That's my point. You see how the scientists are saying that it's still 75 million years old when we know what the degradation rates of DNA is? It can't be. Those two statements can't be true. It can't be 75 million years old and DNA not last for 75 million years. It just can't, those two statements are diametrically opposed to each other. That's my point. That's my whole reason for bringing you here, is I'm showing you that scientists are going against what they're finding because
So you
that's their
realize that
religious
they
viewpoint.
didn't find a complete genome, right?
That wasn't my claim, brother. That was not my claim.
They
My
found-
claim was that they're
found
finding
molecular
DNA.
remnants, like what was
Of-
a little bit, like
Yeah.
what was kind of left, right?
I get it. It's fragments of DNA. My claim was very clear. I said fragments of DNA. I never claimed sequenceable DNA. I'm not claiming that it's dripping with blood. I said they're finding DNA. That's my claim, not a
Are
lot.
You, are you saying that this is going against the? It's an unusual event. I will grant you that. That is weird, right? Because it's kind of agreed upon that all the biological material should die once the life form dies, right?
Yeah, so this is the first time they found this. I took it there because it's the newest, but they're also doing it with soft tissue. Like in an effort to find this, they turn they dissolve the minerals and got the soft tissue out of this experiment, and then they found the DNA. So the soft tissue used to be very rare too, but now it's not anymore. So they've been doing this now for 20 years. Like I said, you can just go watch the 60 Minutes interview that they've done with Mary Schweitzer, where you can see the soft tissue of the dinosaur being pulled out and stretched, and it's elastic and it's collagen.
Wait,
so
hold
my
on, hold
point
on.
is,
maybe I'm more confused. Yeah, I need your point because it doesn't disprove DNA is different from isotopes.
brother, can DNA last for 65 million years? If not, I can take you to the scientifically peer-reviewed papers that shows you the half-life of DNA.
Like not
So the
DNA
half-life
by
of
itself,
DNA
but
is
some remnants possibly.
no. DNA cannot last for 65 million years. Remnants can't either. It goes from a half, then it goes to a quarter, then it goes to an eighth and a 16th, a 32nd, and so forth and so on. I understand mathematically it never goes to zero, but technically it will go past a point to where you're not going to be able to detect any of it. None of it.
This is just an instance
This
of
paper
DNA
says-
surviving very, does this like...
See, faith. That's faith. So science literally says that it can't last this long, and you're taking by faith that it just happens because you have to believe that dinosaurs are 65 million years old against the science.
Here's what I believe. Here's what I believe, right?
Uh-huh.
That the fact that there's not an explanation doesn't immediately grant the idea that it's a higher power or that it's wrong. You know what I mean?
I'm not claiming that. I'm not going to deity. I'm not going to deity. But what we do have is it's not like there's an unknown mechanism. If there is later, then I'll change. If they come out with another mechanism, then clearly I'll have to update my argument. But as it sits right now in 2026, they do not have a mechanism that can get soft tissue.
DNA reactive straining and other molecular evidence.
Yes, and it
So
can't last for
DNA
65 million years. Brother,
DNA
listen,
reactive.
and I know. Hold on. I don't want to. Let me help you out before you make a statement, because I understand that you're skimming this paper. So before you say that it's not actually DNA, continue to read the paper. Here's some excerpts out of the paper. It literally says that when it talks about the two chemical markers that they use to find the DNA, it has to. They used two different ones, not just two different at the same time. They used one that got the reaction, they tested it with another one, so it's double tested. This not only supports that the compound within the cells are chemically consistent with DNA, but the material is double stranded and at least a minimum length of 6 base pairs. That's DNA. In an effort for the chemicals to even attach
was
to it, it has to be
though.
double helixed.
These are just remnants. These are just small fractions inside
That's my
cells.
point, brother. Now you're agreeing with me. Thank you. I'm glad we agree now that this is a lot. Brother, I need you to calm down because now we're in agreement. I don't want to talk about the stuff we're in agreement on. We agree that this is a very, very small amount of DNA. It's only 6 base pairs. That's great. That's my contention.
DNA
It's all
derived
very
material,
small.
Sure.
It's still DNA, and it can't last for 65 million years. You have to contend with that. I don't know is a perfectly reasonable answer, but if you're just going to go against the science and say, I still want to believe, that's fine. But you just have to understand that's faith.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
What you got?
I have a question. Do you
Okay.
Exceptionally
deny
preserved.
fossils? Like, do you think they're as old as the scientific
Have a good
papers
one.
say? Do you deny the fossil record?
Do I deny? No, I think the fossil record is because of the flood.
Okay. So you don't think the fossil record is right at all? Or do you think certain parts are right?
I think the fossil record is a record of the flood.
Okay. So what I want to ask is that the fossil record is like closely tied to geology, right? Can we agree on that?
Okay.
I'm talking the scientific version. So because of it being tied to the
Hello.
geological record, if you don't believe fossils are the way the science has like provenly like showed it is, like how do you explain some like phenomenons in the earth such as like mountains? Because if you don't believe the fossil record and that you don't believe in geology,
Ma'am, the fossil
you don't
fossil record and mountains are not the same thing. I believe
No, because
in
it's part of
geology.
geology.
Hold on. I believe in plate tectonics. I believe that it happened during the flood. Fossils don't disprove flood, or fossils don't disprove mountains. I don't know where you're going with that. You said let you up because you were very educated in what you're talking about, but I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. You can see local floods. In
But we
the
know-
fossil record, you can see, like, let's say, you take like a layer, a slice of earth. You in those parts, you would surely find, and at some point there was a flood. You can see it because geologists actually know how to identify when a flood happened because there are signs.
Yeah, they do.
And actually, those model, like, it can mix.
Do you see
around
these?
things.
You see this picture behind me? You see this is the geologic column, right? You have many different layers inside of it, right? The geologic column says that this layer is older than this layer, and this layer is older than this layer by millions of years, right? So the fact that you have, well, that's what they say. Yes, it is. They
It's
say that this is the
transitional. It
Jurassic,
isn't
this
like
is the Cretaceous.
It isn't like it isn't like if a pancake is like 1 million years old and the other one is like.
But I understand. But you understand my contention is that they say that these are long periods of time, right? Each one of these layers are different periods of time, right?
You could say
And some
that,
of them
yes.
are separated by millions of years, right?
Yes, there are gaps.
Okay,
in the
so hold
geological record.
on. This is not a monologue. Let's you and I have a conversation. So
Mhm.
these right here is called hydrologic sorting. This happens in water. This is literally all over the planet. Now, the problem that you have is what they call polystrate fossils. This is an AI vision, so it's not perfect. They
Yes.
don't have little limbs and stuff coming off of them. But polystrate fossils are fossils that connect all of these different layers. These layers can literally not be millions of years apart from each other if you have a tree that fossilizes that connects them all. This shows that the quote-unquote geologic column that you're referring to is not millions of years old. This happened in Noah's flood, and this is found all over the planet.
Yes, but no, because you're
What about radiation,
oversimplifying all of
hydrolysis,
them.
and oxidation?
Okay,
Did you just say
there are
yes,
layers.
no?
There
Oh
are
man,
layers. Listen to me. There
I'm
are
listening.
layers that, for example, like close to volcanoes, that where you can see there was an eruption, and you can see like that the like volcanic ash is there in the layers, in between the layers. How do you explain that with Noah's flood?
Because when Noah's flood happened, there were volcanoes erupting all over the place. I think when you had the fountains of the deep break open, obviously you're going to have eruptions of volcanoes also. Got a gnat all over my face. But
How
there's going
old
to
do you
be
think the Earth is?
oh man, you just what? Come on, let's stay on a topic here. I would say that it's less than 10,000,
just
but
curious.
I mean, yeah, about less than 10,000. That's my personal belief, but honest answer is I don't know.
That's okay.
Yeah, so
Can I-
there's
can I
more than
ask-
enough evidence for a worldwide flood.
No,
What's
there
up, Tom?
isn't.
So
Okay,
I just
just
want to say, what's
saying
your
no.
main argument for there was a flood? Like, what's your main evidence? I just want to know.
Hydrologic sorting, polystrata fossils, dinosaur boneyards, soft tissue, and DNA fragments found in dinosaurs.
And the Bible.
DNA fragments found in dinosaurs, which is the lack of hydrolysis, oxidization, and radiation.
No, I gave you all the. Wait. You said what? Say it again. I missed it. I'm sorry.
The main causes of DNA degradation are oxidization, hydrolysis, and radiation, which are all don't happen when they're in cool, dry, and oxygen-poor
You got
environments.
a study
We can
that
see
I can
we
look
see
at to
in
show that this
amber.
doesn't happen.
We can see that in amber. We can see that in all. We've got
But do you got a study that shows that DNA can get out past the half-lives of what we've seen? I need to look at that. I don't believe your claim at all. So I need you to support that.
I'm
Like a
actually
actual
here
study?
to
Hold on
I
one
don't have one.
second. Let him. Yeah, that's because
They'll
it
be
doesn't
there.
exist.
They'll be there.
No,
but I
just
don't
come
have
on,
one
come
right
on,
now.
man. So let me go over my rules. Most people know them because they've been up here a little while. So number one is you have to answer. And these rules apply to me, and I only have 3. Rule number 1 is you have to answer questions directly, and then you can expound. I'm not going to force you to answer a question directly and then not expound, but you have to answer it directly, and then you can expound. Rules apply to me too. Rule number 2 is if you make a claim, you have to support the claim, back off of the claim, or say, I don't know. What you cannot do is make a claim, refuse to support the claim, and then just say that the claim is real regardless without any evidence. That's going to end the conversation. And then rule number 3 is please don't cuss and use TikTok language because it takes me a while to beep everything out, and I don't want to get my channel taken down because you're not using TikTok language. So unfortunately for you, you've made a claim that DNA can survive for millions of years based off of isolation and radiation. So I need you to support that because I think that's wrong. So if you cannot support that, then you either have to back off of the claim or say I don't know, or the conversation is going to end. So can you support the claim that DNA can get out to millions of years based off what you've said so far?
I'd have to go find studies. I don't have the studies on me right now.
Right. So we're going to go with no. That doesn't exist.
Yeah.
All right. So
Also,
yeah, that
can
would
you-
be
can
my
you
evidences
support-
for the flood.
Can you support your claim on the flood or the stuff that you said
Yeah.
at the start? Is there any studies?
Yeah, no problem. Which one would you like me to go with first?
I don't know. Let's. I forgot what you said.
Hydrologic sorting, polystrata fossils, dinosaur graveyards, soft tissue and DNA fragments found in dinosaurs.
What did you say? Dinosaur graveyards. What did you say?
Sure. All right. So you got the Hell's Creek and the Morrison Formation, which go from the top of Mexico all the way across the United States and into Canada. Right. That's the Hell's Creek and Morrison Formation. That's a dinosaur graveyard. Are you aware?
I didn't know that, but I do now.
Okay, fair enough. So if you just look at the map on it, you'll see that this is a huge area where they find all these, dinosaurs at. So the evolutionary contention is that these dinosaurs unalived in individual flood events over millions of years. The evolutionary, or excuse me, the model for the flood, I can't talk today, says that they unalived in a flood 4,500 years ago. So which is true? Now we got to use Occam's razor to determine which one makes the least amount of assumptions to get to the correct answer. Did these dinosaurs in this huge graveyard, did they unalive one at a time in individual, or a couple at a time maybe, but in small flood events, thousands of them over millions of years? Or is it more likely that they unalived in one flood event and then got buried in sediment as the water receded? Well, let's take a look. We can find soft tissue and DNA fragments in them. So this shows that they're not 65 million years old, so this supports the flood model. The fact that you're finding dinosaurs of roughly the same body density type usually shows that they were probably sorted out in water before they got laid down. And the fact that these are floods that had rapid sediment burial over top of these dinosaurs supports Noah's flood. So I think it takes the least amount of assumptions to believe that this happened instead of me believing individual flood events happened over millions of years to bury dinosaurs one at a time in these areas. And that there was no, for the most part, predation and all of these other things. It looks like the dinosaurs unalived floated around for a couple of weeks in various, or months, in various states of decay and then were fossilized.
Gotcha. And so the 4,500 years, where did they get that number from?
The Bible.
Yeah, but I mean, like you said, there were studies done on this flood that was like the graveyard, right? The 4,500
Well, that's
years.
that's the flood model. So the flood model says that, I mean, the Bible tells us that the flood was about 4,500 years ago if you add up the lineages. So that's where we can place the flood at. So then we got to look at which one fits the flood model. Now, I can make some prediction based off of the flood model. I can say if these dinosaurs did unalive 4,500 years ago, then we can still find DNA and cartilage, or soft tissue inside of them, because that fits the degradation rates of collagen and DNA. Even though DNA has a half-life of 527 years, it goes from a half to a quarter to an eighth to a 16th, 32nd, and so forth and so on. You can still find extremely small amounts of fragments of DNA in 4,500 years. That's still reasonable, right? It's not reasonable to say that you could find it in 65 million years. So it fits my model. So it supports my model. Same thing with collagen. The fact that they're finding soft tissue fits my model. It doesn't fit the evolutionary model. That's the evidence.
Yeah. And so do you have the studies that show that it fits the 4,500 years? This collagen degradation, the half-life, right? You talk about.
Yeah, I just gave it to you, brother.
Do you have the studies
I just gave it to you. That? Yes, I literally just gave it to you. Do you want me to give you the degradation rates of DNA or the fact that they're finding DNA in dinosaurs?
I'll get back to you on that.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not sure.
All right, man. Well, yeah. Appreciate you coming, man. Thanks for the conversation. All right, man. God bless.
I want to actually debate you on the evolution claim, not the flood claim, because I'm honestly not versed in the Bible itself.
All right. So you want to talk about evolution?
Yes.
Okay, so let me tell you this ahead of time so that we're not arguing over definitions. I believe in microevolution. I think that microevolution is testable and observable, and I think anything outside of that is not. So for me to say that macroevolution would be true, I would need to see genetic information gain.
Okay, so my first question would be, if you believe small changes can happen over a very little amount of time, why do you not think this can stack like over time?
I got you. So if macroevolution was true, then I do believe that the mechanism would be micro. That's reasonable. The problem is that evolution is not time-based. People think this because they watch the X-Men. And the only examples that people give them are organisms that have a long gestation period. For example, for you to see evolution in a human, humans take 9 months to have a baby, 18 years or at least 16, 17 years for them to become sexually mature so that they can pass on their genes. So in an effort for you to get to 80,000, 90,000 generations, it would take over 100,000 years or a million years. It would take over a million years. So I granted that would be a long time. But we have organisms like E. coli bacteria that can have many generations in a single day. They can have up to 9 generations in a single day. So why is it that in 80,000 generations in human evolution, we went from an ape-type ancestor to a human-type ancestor. Why is it in the same amount of generations that we have tested and observed in E. coli bacteria do we only see degradation? We don't see any information gain. So why is it that evolution only happens long ago and far away and when you're not looking at it?
Well, that's definitely an oversimplification of evolution, but
I said
I want
80,000
to-
generations, not 80.
Yeah, I know, but oh, that was the comment.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. Humans have been evolving for a long time, and and here's the thing. We have fossils to prove that, but I'm not going to go into fossils. I want you to answer me. What's the actual evidence that contradicts evolution? But I also want to give you some evidence. You say we're going to from an ape-like ancestor, did you say?
That's what y'all believe. I don't believe that.
No, but you say, but here's the thing. If we speak scientifically, we are in the classification of great apes. Because we can agree that our species name is Homo sapiens sapiens. Can we agree on that?
Yes, ma'am, but that's why I said I didn't want to argue over definitions, because clearly I'm not going to agree with you just so we can say that just because the definition says we're apes, then therefore we evolved.
No.
I need some evidence.
No. Let me follow up with that. Do you know
Okay.
what's the taxonomic pyramid?
Yes. I know of it. If you asked me to give you every single example, I wouldn't be able to do that.
Here's the thing. You have the species name. And let me look it up real quick, the specific thing, to not tell you anything wrong.
Okay.
What's going on?
What's up, E-Man? Waiting on her. What you got?
Not much. You know, I agree with you honestly.
Here's the
Nice.
Here it is. For example,
Okay.
we are Homo sapiens, right? We can agree on
Okay.
that.
Okay.
The genus is Homo. The family is Hominidae. The order
Who you calling a homo?
primate. What?
Nothing. I'm teasing. Go ahead. Yes, ma'am. I
The
got you. I was just
order
teasing. Go ahead.
Is primates that there is. The phylum is Chordata. The kingdom is Animalia, and the domain it doesn't really matter because that's the way. And here's the thing: how do we know that? The question that would be an important question to ask. Do you think? Well, we know
Yes,
that
ma'am.
because we can find the fossils, but also we have what you probably have heard of, I actually did forget the name. These parts that we don't use anymore.
Vestigial structures.
Yes, that. I'm sorry, English is not my first language. And
You're
because
fine,
we
I got
have
you, I'm
vestigial
following.
Structures, you can tell that definitely there was something before. Right, for example, the tailbone we had. But if you actually get into human evolution, if I'm not mistaken, human evolution, we had lost our tail before we became more human-like, you might say. And that's
Let me
that's
help you
a
out with the tailbone. Do you know the tailbone is not vestigial? It's anchor points for our pelvic wall. So, not to get into gross details, but you can live without your tailbone, but you do need it. It's part of the anchor points for your reproductive organs and stuff. And again, like I said, it's absolutely true that you can live without it, but that doesn't make it vestigial. So it has a function, and it's always had a function.
The appendix is another example that's very known, but
The
and for
appendix
example-
is part of your immune. The appendix is part of your immune system. Again, you can live without it, but it doesn't mean that it's useless. Once you lose your
Can you
appendix,
live
then
without
you're
your
subject to more different types of diseases or infections.
can you live without your heart? Because that would be an example the thing.
Ma'am, you can live without both your arms, both your legs, both your eyes, and your ears, but that doesn't mean you don't need them. It doesn't make them vestigial just because you can lose them and still live. They're not vestigial. They have purposes and functions, so they're not vestigial.
Okay, let's talk about a vestigial structure that can actually damage you, that it is in the appendix, or the teeth that are the molars.
Ma'am, there's plenty of things in your body that can have a bad reaction that can damage you. Your body can one day wake up and then your own immune system start to fight you and unalive you because something went haywire. So your appendix can get infected and it can burst and unalive you. That doesn't mean that you don't need it. That's the problem with Newton's second law of thermodynamics, right? Things are tending to decay and towards chaos. How?
Because, one of the reasons humans evolved so much, because we used to eat like a lot of plants, and then we started to eat a lot of meat, which made our brains bigger, and that made it so we could
I get
keep
it.
evolving.
Listen, I do.
Here's the thing. Because we ate more plants, those teeth we had in the backs of our mouths, that a lot of people aren't born.
Ma'am, that's an example. That's an example of degradation, right? So even if I was to grant you that we're losing our wisdom teeth, that's not an example of evolution. That's degrading information. You're losing it. You cannot go from a single-celled organism to a fully functional human by losing all of your information. And so far, you've said we've lost our tailbone. Okay, if we used to be monkeys and we lost our tailbone, that's not evolution, we're losing. If our appendix is useless and we don't need it, then that is that. If we're losing our appendix and we don't need it, that's an example of degradation. That's losing information. And then if you're saying that we're losing our wisdom teeth, that's losing information. You can't keep doing this. That's a math problem. You keep losing it, you're going to go extinct. I need an example of information gain, not degradation.
Black people. Do you know how? No, I'm serious.
Hold on, I just can't. Can I get in here? This is killing
I'm
me.
serious. Like,
oh
hear
my
me
gosh.
out. Do you know why black people exist? Like evolutionary.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
That's because melanin, which is what you gain from when you are too much in the sun, gets passed down by generation.
So I ask,
and
I got you. So I ask,
you gain
hold on.
That is beneficial.
Let's have a back and
for
forth,
those
right?
People and the environment.
So that's not new information. It took the existing information of melanin and increased it. That's not new information, that's existing information. You're taking melanin and you're increasing it so you get a darker skin color. If you decrease the same thing, then you get a lighter skin color. That's not evolution. That's literally taking existing information. Now, if you want to say that's micro, I agree with that, but that's not macro.
Okay, but if it can happen over a short period of time, why can't it happen over a long period of time?
I got you, Lou. Listen, I appreciate.
You haven't given an actual argument for it.
I did. I gave you an actual argument, and I used E. coli bacteria. So let me go ahead and let my man hop in here real quick before I move on.
Hey, thank you. I wanted to tell you, first of all, I could tell you have the spirit, brother. I could tell you have the spirit.
Thanks,
because the way you handle some of the stuff that when you're on this side of things, you've been studying long enough, the way you handle having patience, brother, like I really, really admire it. That being said, because I know where you're at and I know how much studying it takes to get where you're at, I am a sit and wait trib, and I'm asking if you could reconcile pre-trib isn't biblical, because not from an argumentative standpoint, but just because I'll trust your research and be able to look it up myself.
Yeah, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Paul writes the first church of Thessalonica. So he writes the letter to the church of Thessalonians. And the first letter he writes them, he tells them about the rapture. It says, Jesus comes back in the clouds at the sound of an archangel and the blowing of a trumpet, and gathers the unalived in Christ first, and then we which are alive and remain go up to the clouds to meet him. Most scholars believe that someone tricked the church and wrote a letter to the church pretending to be Paul, and made the church think that they had missed the rapture. So Paul has to write them another letter. This is 2 Thessalonians, and he starts it off like this: I beseech you, brethren, by the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and our gathering together unto him. Again, this is 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, starting at verse 1. I beseech you, brethren, by the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and our gathering together unto him. He literally starts off the letter saying, I'm begging you guys about the rapture, that you not soon be shaken in mind or troubled in spirit, even if you receive a letter as from us. So Paul says, even if you receive another letter that somebody's telling you something different, know that what I'm about to say is the truth, that the day of Christ is at hand. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day, what day? The day that we're talking about here, the rapture, cannot happen until two things happen: a falling away from and a man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. And then it goes on to tell you that's clearly the Antichrist. He sets himself up in the temple and proclaims himself to be God.
Okay.
That's literally the abomination of desolation, right? The Antichrist makes a treaty, he breaks the treaty, and he proclaims himself to be God and causes the temple to be desolate. If you go to the book of Daniel, this says this happens in the middle of the tribulation, or in the middle of the 70th week. It says he makes a treaty with many for 1 week, and in the midst of the week, he does the abomination of desolation. So that's the middle. Okay. So then 2 Thessalonians literally says, unequivocally, without a doubt, that the rapture cannot happen until after the abomination of desolation. So pre-tribulation just cannot be true, because that's at the beginning of the 7 years, not in the middle.
Okay, that's excellent, and also great insight on what the letters were actually doing. So that's going to make looking at those books far more interesting this evening. Where I had gotten tripped up, because I was definitely pre-trib for a while. Firstly, because the idea of people just vanishing around everybody with them having no clue what was going on was just fantastic in my mind. But the sin in my heart wanted that to happen pretty bad,
Amen.
But I will say one thing that kind of threw me astray is in the book of Jasher, which I know is non-canonical, but it's still an interesting read. In the book of Jasher, there is a rapture before the flood. So that really is what it was because this, then that for me.
Yeah.
It's like if it, even though it's not scripture, I was still taking it as historical, and it was making me think pre-trib might be the way to go. So I really appreciate that, but more importantly, I appreciate your patience, the way you're handling.
Thanks, man.
Some of this that I've been watching for an hour. So.
No,
appreciate it, man.
It never says that we're not going to go through trials and tribulations. It says that we're not going to face God's wrath. So, So, for example, whenever he saved Noah, whenever he saved Lot, they never experienced his wrath. Now we might experience the devil's wrath, because it says he's cast down from heaven and he's angry, and we might experience that wrath. But God's wrath we'll never experience.
Amen.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm going to go, but I
email.
have a question before. Can I make
Okay,
one
yes,
last
ma'am.
question, and I'm leaving
Yes,
after
ma'am.
you answer it?
Yes, ma'am.
Would anything make you believe in evolution?
Yeah, that's why I said. Yeah, that's why I gave my definition to begin with. My falsifiable viewpoint would be genetic information gain. Genetic, because it has to be passed on to your children. New information as far as new structures, new functions, new code, new DNA, and it'd have to be gained from something that wasn't there before. Now, it wouldn't make me not believe in Jesus, because that's a different field. But, I mean, it would hurt my faith very, very clearly. But if I saw that, then it would be hard for me to deny it, obviously, if there's genetic information gain.
Well, we all know that the
Amen.
Bible is the word of man, or word of God.
Word of God.
Yeah, word of man. Man, I've been watching this shit too long.
E-Man, what's up, brother?
Nothing much. I've seen a lot of people saying like how the flood doesn't make sense, and how making an ark to hold all these things is, seems impossible. But if something, that advance is possible, what explains the pyramids? You know what I mean? So that's what I look at. I look at, how they was able to make such a, advanced and meticulous pyramid like this without even having power tools. So that's what also strengthens my belief in this ark and that story there with Noah.
Well, most people just go with what gets me on here is most people just make assumptions without ever looking into it. I mean, I had a guy up here earlier who said they couldn't fit millions of animals on the boat. Like, what? There wasn't millions of animals. And when people say this, they're only off by millions. Right? There only had to be thousands of animals, like 6,000 to 20,000 animals at the most, 6,000 at the least, 20,000 at the most. That's very reasonable. Adolescent animals, obviously, because you're not going to take fully grown adults, because the whole purpose is when they get off the boat to reproduce. So they're small adolescent animals. So 1, they don't eat a lot. 2, they don't poop a lot. And then 3, on a boat that's longer than a football field, that's 3 buses, city buses, end to end wide, and 5 stories tall. There's more than enough room for all of the animals to fit on that boat. It's just the contentions are just, the arguments are really silly against the flood. You can say you don't believe it, but as far, you have to be able to poke holes in it, and so far they just can't. That adds validity to what the Bible says.
Yep, and I agree with that.
And I think I've said this before, but it's like we believe that our Savior unalived and resurrected. We believe that he walked on water. We believe that he helped a blind man see. You don't think that we believe that he can get a couple of animals in a boat, man? Like, I mean, come on. It's just crazy. Like, do you not know what we believe in the Bible? That this is nothing to our God? Like, this is nothing. And like, there's no way. There's no way. No, there's absolutely a way. We believe that he fasted for 40 days and 40 nights. And I think the longest recorded in modern day era is like 35 days or something like that. Like recorded, actually, because you can take somebody at their word. But I'm talking about like on a recorded basis. But 40 days and 40 nights was no problem for Jesus.
Guys, like, so let me go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's just crazy. It's just crazy to me that they're like, I can't believe you'd believe this. You might want to sit down and listen to this, because it gets a lot crazier.
Amen. Guys, so been doing this now for about 2.5 hours, so I do appreciate it. I go live every Monday, and I go live every Wednesday for sure, and then I go live randomly when I just can throughout the week. So today was a random day. I didn't have nothing going on here after work, so I decided to pop on. But definitely Mondays and definitely Wednesdays for sure, and then randomly after that. So I just want to take the time towards the end of the live to say thank you to everyone that throws a little money in the pot. I appreciate it. I don't ask for it, but anyone that gives me the stickers and throws a little money in the PayPal on the account, it doesn't go unnoticed and it doesn't go unused. I put it right back into the ministry, and I do thank you guys for it. By no means am I making gobs of money off of this thing, but it doesn't go unnoticed. And when people give the stickers and I'm not able to thank them at the exact time because I'm right in the middle of a debate or right in the middle of a conversation, I try to throw up a salute to say thank you. But at the end of the live, I do want to take the time to actually say thank you. I really do appreciate it. I've a couple of things that I've done with the money is I've got lights, I've got mics, I've got holders here. I got a subscription to some AI building tools, so not only can it helps me with my research, being able to find sources and stuff for this stuff, I can also build videos because I'm a one-man show over here. So if you go on my channel, you can start to see that I'm starting to make AI videos. They're not like top quality, but people have a real short attention span. So I think if we can use a visual learning and keep it under 3 minutes, because that's what shorts and videos people want to go to now, the really fast videos, then I'm using it to that. So I appreciate it. I do thank you guys for it. And that's what I'm putting it into. And thank you. I do appreciate it. So God bless. And as always, Mr. Allen, you get the last word.
Okay. I'm sending you some more storms your way.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Well, I got the grass mode, so I'm good. Let it rain.
Yeah, we're having some severe thunderstorms right now.
Oh.
I like that one earlier where, sometimes they just seem like they lived that millions and millions of years ago, and they're dead serious. Right,
Yeah.
But like always, God bless you and keep going strong.
All right, guys, y'all have a good one. I'll see y'all later.
God bless, brother.